Just comb your hair, go and wash your face. It's been a real long time since you've seen the light of day. So let thoughts come as they may, beauty and parade. Everybody all smiles when you're back in the seat again. All aboard the Petty Express to a beautiful darkness. It's full steam ahead to ride the rails to our next destination. Yeah!
Good morning, everyone. It is Mo, your conductress on the, Petty Express, and it looks like halfway through day 4, and some of the morning of day 4, but definitely into the afternoon, we are going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of why the state felt that this was a, suspicious fire. So finally, it has taken us a while, but we are getting there. We managed to finish up yesterday right as we were on the lunch break, and looks like we are coming back and asking if there's anything that the state or the defense needs to take care of at this particular time. Now, I did skip a little bit ahead, and I did find out that we are going to be going with Detective Gabrielle Rott next, and then after that we will be talking to Scott Leroy. So we have heard Scott Leroy's name brought up a lot, but he is going to be the retired Michigan State fire investigator, and he was the one that made some of the choices about where the clothing went, why he wanted to have some of the pants in his possession or some of the clothing. So maybe we'll get some more information about how those decisions were made and things like that. Now, just to remind you, a lot of these particular employees are going to be retired now, just because it has been about 18 years since this actual crime. But without much further ado, let's get into this and get going.
The record should reflect I did meet with counsel during the lunch hour on the issue of Ms. Stermer being in jail in on or about June of 2009. I had ruled that the prosecution and in favor of the prosecution when they argued that the defense opened the door to Ms. Stermer's jail status back in June by focusing in the questioning on why Detective Maziowski would have waited so long to interview this Dordita Gordon. So I had ruled that that opened the door. On further reflection, I don't know how much it really did. I think the more important question is when he first got information that would cause him to interview Dardita Gordon. But in any way, we have the jailhouse snitch was brought up in the defense by their opening. We have this witness who's going to testify that she was in jail. So it's neither here nor there at this point, but parties and I have met, and I think everybody's in agreement with approaching this in the following way. I would give an initial instruction now when they come in that says you've heard testimony that Ms. Stermer was in jail on or about June 2009. The parties stipulate that she was in jail for this offense. You must not consider this as evidence of defendant's guilt. The fact that she was in jail must not impact your deliberations or verdict in any way. You may only consider Detective Maziowski's testimony regarding this to explain why he did the interview of Dardita Gordon when he did. And then there's a request to give the same instruction without the last sentence honing in on Detective Maziowski immediately prior to Dardita Gordon testifying. Is that correct, counsel?
I think that's a fair reflection of our conversation, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll do that. Any other matters to address then before we bring in the jury?
I will say I appreciate this judge, taking time. She gave an order and then she thought, let me think about this. And then she called the both sides attorneys in and said, on further reflection, I don't think that this is supported by law. But what do you feel about this particular, clarifying or curative instruction being put up? Which I think is, I do like lawyers who are thoughtful, who take their time, who, say, hey, can I have a couple minutes to think about this and really go through? And I will say that this judge has been infinitely patient with these, especially with the defense. So I like this judge. And congratulations, that's great.
Jury?
I have none, Your Honor.
Your Honor, could I just have 1 second?
You good, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll bring in the jury. For a legal instruction for you before we proceed with witnesses. You have heard testimony that Ms. Stermer was in jail on or about June of 2009. The parties stipulate that she was in jail for this offense. You must not consider this as evidence of defendant's guilt. The fact that she was in jail must not impact your deliberations or verdict in any way. You may only consider Detective Maziowski's testimony regarding this to explain why he did the interview of Dardita Gordon when he did it. Counsel satisfied with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Mueller satisfied, or Mr. Kelly satisfied?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, you may call your next witness then.
Thank you, Your Honor. If we could call Gabrielle Rout.
Okay.
And I will put up the banner, but I want to make sure I spelled route correctly.
You raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please have a seat, and when you're settled, we'll have you give us your full name and spell the last, please.
My name is Gabrielle, Gabrielle, and last Rout, Rought.
Thank you. Ms. Seidman?
Thank you. Detective Rout, were you employed on January 7th of 2007?
Yes, I was.
And what was your employment at that time?
I was a detective for the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office.
And how long did you work for the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department?
16 and a half years.
Are you currently still employed there?
No, I'm retired.
And on January 7th of 2007, did you receive a call regarding the Stermer residence and a fatal fire?
Yes, I did. I was home and received a call from my commanding officer, Lieutenant Stump.
And what did you do upon receiving that call?
I went to the residence. It was in Lawrence, and when I got there, I radioed him that I was there.
Do you recall approximately what time you arrived there?
I arrived a little bit after 5:30. I think it was actually 5:35.
And can you explain to the jury what you saw when you arrived there?
When I arrived there, there was a long driveway that went to the west, and there was a police line tape that was across the driveway.
And did you cross that police line?
I did. After I spoke with my lieutenant, he advised me to go ahead and come back in. I drove just a short distance on the driveway where I parked.
And any issues driving on the driveway at that time?
No.
Do you recall how many other vehicles were in the driveway when you arrived there?
There were quite a few vehicles, but mostly I remember emergency vehicles, but they were closer to the residence.
Did it appear that any of those vehicles were stuck?
I wasn't close enough to see any of those.
And LSG, we had a couple of downed lines of power in the sort of town, but out here in the rural area, I noticed some branches, but it didn't seem like we got crazy weather. That being said, I didn't really go anywhere other than to take my boys to school. So I could not know if there were some severe damages, other places in my town. But from what I saw, I mean, there were some intersection crossing lights that were out, and everyone had to remember what they were supposed to do for a four-way stop, which in and of itself can be dangerous. That being said, we were lucky and didn't have a lot. It did sound incredibly scary, but I was glad that, it wasn't too bad because honestly, the storms hit around 9 p.m. here, and that's about the time that I either, I will fall asleep for my first little bit of sleep for the night and then wake up around 1 p.m. So it's right around the time that I get really, really tired. So I was glad that, they weren't so terrible because it was going to be bad. I would have been really tired around the time that the storms came.
Those vehicles, I was closer to the road.
And did you walk down the driveway then to the home?
No, I did not go to the home. I walked to where Lieutenant Stump and Lieutenant Lux were and Deputy Evans, and I believe it was maybe somewhere in the front yard area, but it was closer to the road. It wasn't by the house.
And did you speak to any other law enforcement when you first arrived then?
No, just those three.
So you did speak then to Deputy Evans, Lieutenant
Lieutenant Lux and Lieutenant Stump.
And what did they ask you to do when you arrived?
Lieutenant Stump asked me to go and take pictures of Todd Stermer before the MEI completed the investigation or removed the body from the scene.
And when you say MEI, what does that stand for?
The medical examiner investigator.
Would that have been Amy Darling?
Yes,
So did you take photos of the body?
I did.
And did you also take photos of the scene?
I did, but after speaking with Mrs. Stermer.
Can you describe then what you saw when you went to, can you describe Todd Stermer when you were taking pictures of him?
Well, the first picture, he was covered with a tarp, but after those items were removed, I saw extreme burn injuries. I saw some skin slippage on his hands, and when he was rolled over on his side, I saw some lacerations on the back of his head, shoulder area.
And so you said he was covered with a tarp at that time.
Yes.
Was he alive at that point?
No.
Did you speak to the defendant on scene?
I did.
Do you recall approximately when that was?
It was about 6:25 in the evening,
So approximately an hour after you arrived?
even a little less than an hour, yes.
And what was your purpose of your questioning at that time of the defendant?
Well, my purpose was to just get preliminary information from her as to what happened. It was not an interrogation, and this was the scene of a fatal house fire where, her husband just passed, so I was certainly trying to be sympathetic to what was just happened.
Where was she when you spoke to her?
Initially, I was told that she was seated in a red pickup truck, but actually, I was directed to an ambulance where she was in the back of the ambulance.
Was anyone else with her in the ambulance?
Yes, a woman by the name of Gail Crandall.
And that's when you had the first opportunity to speak to her?
That's correct.
And did you confirm that she lived in that home with Todd Stermer?
Yes, I did.
And did you ask her who lived in the home with her?
I asked her if she had the number, children, and she told me she had 5, and she named her 3 boys, and then she named 2 girls from her previous relationship. And they did not live there.
When you say they did not live
The
there?
girls.
Did you ask her to recall the events from that morning?
Yes, I did. I asked her if she could recall the events from the time she got up until the present time that I was there.
And did she tell you when she first got up?
She did. She said that she got up earlier than Todd that morning, and she estimated to be about 7 a.m.
And did she say when Todd woke up?
She did. She thought that he woke up at 10 a.m.
And did she say what condition Todd was in?
She did. She told me that Todd had been suffering from an ear infection, and he was taking medication for that. I asked her if she knew the type of medication, and she told me she didn't.
And did she say where Todd was?
She did. She said that Todd was in the living room, snoozing on and off, watching TV.
Did she say what she did?
She said that she made breakfast for everybody, and she said it was eggs and breakfast sausage, smoky links, and coffee.
And did she talk about where her sons were at that time?
She said her 3 sons were home, but she had asked them not to bother or wake up their father.
Did she talk to you about any arguments that may have occurred?
She did. She said that they had had an earlier argument in the morning when they were in the kitchen. Asked her what the argument was about, and she said that she had told Todd that she used a debit card and that she didn't record the activity in her checkbook register, and she didn't transfer money from one account to another.
Did she tell you where she had sent the boys or where they went?
First before that, I asked her what she had purchased with the debit card, and she said that she had bought some prescriptions, some groceries, and a disposable camera. Yes, she did tell me that she had asked the boys, or told the boys they could go to the mall to hang out so that they wouldn't hear any further arguing.
And did she tell you what time the boys left that day?
I asked her what time she thought that was, and she thought that it was around 12 noon.
Did she say if there was any arguing between her and Todd Stermer after the boys left?
No, I asked her if any arguing occurred after the boys left, and she told me no.
Did she tell you what she did after the boys left?
She said she went outside to turn water on for her horses.
Did she say what Todd was doing at that time?
She did. She said that Todd was in the living room, and he was starting to watch some hunting shows on television.
Did you ask her if there was a fire going in the fireplace?
I asked her if there was a fireplace in the living room, and she said yes, and that there was a fire going in the fireplace.
And did she tell you what she did when she came back into the home?
I asked her what she was doing when Todd was watching the hunting shows, and she said that she went to her bedroom and that she was reading a pamphlet on some acne medication that her son was taking, and she said she snoozed off as well.
That she snoozed off for a while?
Yes.
Did she tell you what happened when she got up?
She said when she got up that Todd had asked her for a drink of juice and that she gave him the juice, and she told me that he was in his recliner chair when
Did she say where that recliner was?
in the living room.
Did she say what she did after she gave him juice?
She did. She said she went down to the basement and she was doing some laundry. She also told me that when she was down there, she had let her dogs out and had fed a cat and was straightening up a bathroom.
And did she say anything occurred when she then was downstairs doing laundry?
She did. She said when she was in doing laundry in the laundry room, she said she heard Todd yell there was a fire, and she ran to the stairs and up the stairs, and she saw fire and a lot of smoke in the living room.
Did she say if she saw Todd at that time?
She said she did not see Todd and that she could not get to a telephone.
And did she tell you what she did next?
She did. She said she got out of the residence and that she knew she needed to get some help, and she thought to go to her neighbor's house, Mike and Connie.
And did she tell you if she then did indeed leave the residence?
She did. She said she got in her van, which was parked in the driveway, and she said she heard a boom and saw Todd on fire in the side yard. I tried to clarify what side yard meant to her, and she told me it was the north side.
Did she tell you how Todd got out of the home?
She said she didn't know how he got out of the home and that he was trying to shed his clothing.
Did she say if he was on fire at that time?
She said when she initially saw him with the boom and see him, he was on fire, but she also said that he was on fire and trying to shed his clothing.
And what did she do then after she saw that?
She said she got in her van and she tried to turn the van around, and she said she couldn't really remember what was going on.
And did she say then if she saw Todd after she was in her van?
She said she saw him and then she couldn't see him, and she said that she drove around the north side of her property, or north side of her house, to the back side or west side of the residence.
Did she say why she was doing that?
She did. She said that she was doing it to get help for Todd or to get Todd in the van.
And when she saw Todd was on fire, did you ask if she took any action?
Well, after she told me that she drove around the north side of the house to the back, she said at one point when she saw him on fire, she tried to get him to stop moving. So I tried to clarify this with her to see if she had gotten out of the van or if she had grabbed onto him. And she said she didn't think that she got out of the van, and she denied ever grabbing him.
Did she say?
Now, that contradicts her statement to her defense's statement on opening, where he claims that her defense attorneys claimed that she, saw him come out on fire, helped him, stop, drop, and roll, propped him up, in a place of comfort and safety. She turns around to go get him help, and some magical way, and yes, he did use that in opening statements, some magical way, he ended up in front of her as she was peeling out to go get help. Now, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand why, if she was going to get help, if she hadn't seen Todd, why, if she was already in the driveway, not go directly to the out the driveway. I hope that the defense cleans this up. I hope that the state will kind of clarify this, but we are now getting more of the things that the state, kind of came right on scene and was seeing. And this detective strikes me as very even keeled. I wish she didn't have that quaver in her voice that sounds like she's almost going to start crying. But she seems to, remember the names and the dates and things like that, and kind of the general things that she did. So I will say that I am liking this detective. I'm liking, again, her pointing things out without, assigning any sort of motive up behind them. She's just saying what Linda told her. And I'm sure that she's going to point out what things don't quite make sense to her, but she's not, putting it in a way that makes Linda look like this is nothing that could happen. And it also says, hey, these are the things. So it just comes off as professional and not biased. But also, these were some things that I had some issues with what she said.
If she saw Todd when she was driving around to the basement area?
No, she said the time from driving around the north side of the property to the back side, she did not see Todd during this process.
Did she tell you at any point she got out of the van?
She did. She said she got out of her van and hollering or yelling, and she saw him again in the side yard, and that's when she said she ran over to him and she covered his body with herself.
And you said that he was in the side yard at that time?
That's correct.
And did she say where approximately in the side yard he was?
No, she just told me side yard.
And she said he was on the ground?
Yes.
Did she tell you what she was doing when she was then covering herself with him?
Well, she said that his face was burned and that he was gasping and she was trying to keep his mouth open.
And did she say if anyone else arrived?
She did. She said her neighbors Mike and Connie and a Mr. Masali got there. She doesn't know where or when they got there. They were just there.
And did she say if at that time when they arrived that Todd was still breathing?
She did. And she said that somebody threw something over the top of him. And from that point on, she didn't really remember a lot.
Did you ask her questions about how the fire may have started?
Well, I asked her if Todd was a smoker, and she told me that he smoked a pipe. I asked, actually, she clarified with me earlier in the interview. I had asked her if there was a fireplace in the living room, and she told me there was. She clarified with me that there were actually 2 fireplaces in the house, and that there was a fire going in the upstairs living room fireplace.
Did you ask her if there was any kerosene in the house?
I asked her if there was any, or I asked if where they kept their kerosene, thinking that they possibly had a kerosene heater or something like that. She said that they didn't have any kerosene that she was aware of.
And did you ask her about how they did heat the home?
I asked her about the fuel tank, and she said that they did heat their home with fuel oil and that it was professionally filled.
Did you ask her about any potential oil lamps or anything in the home?
No, she told me that there were 2 oil lamps, one in the living room and one in the dining room.
Did you ask her about what the arguments were about prior to the boys leaving?
I briefly asked her if there was a series of little arguments leading to a big one, and she said no, it was just typical relational argument. And she said...
And thank you, Veteran Nation Raid. Sorry, I was looking down to take my notes because I really want to make sure I'm taking down what Linda is telling the first person she tells her story to. Because the state is going to claim, and has claimed, that Linda's story starts to change. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm getting all of the, initial story that she told to police kind of down the way she says it, so we can see where that starts to change.
That Todd was under a lot of pressure, that his business wasn't doing well, and they were just arguing over typical stuff. And she said that he was also angry with her that she had attended her grandmother's 90th birthday party the night before.
And at that time that you were talking to the defendant, did you have any knowledge about blood on the van?
No, I didn't.
Did she ever offer any information about running Todd over?
No.
And you didn't ask because you didn't have the information, is that correct?
That's correct.
Then did you obtain search warrants then for the van and for the residence?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any further involvement that day at the scene?
Yes, after that, I took several photographs of the scene before my camera battery died.
And did you see the tire tracks in the yard?
I did.
And were they marked with flags at that time?
Yes, they were.
And could you tell where those tracks started and where they led to?
They appear to be coming from a blood puddle area leading to where the van was parked behind the residence.
And you saw that after your interviews then with
Yes,
Mr.
actually, yes.
Were you back out to the residence then on January 8th of 2007?
Yes, along with Lieutenant Stump, we both were.
Anyone else present there when you were out there on January 8th?
Yes, the fire marshal, Sergeant Leroy, and there were members of the fire department.
Did you take pictures of the scene then on January 8th?
Yes, I did.
So I wonder if we're going to start seeing pictures of the fire being concentrated someplace. I'm not a fireologist, but I'm guessing that they are going to know maybe ways that this looks more, sus than not unsus, normal.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 31.
Alrighty, we're going to continue to fast forward through looking at pictures.
If you could just flip through those pictures real quick and let me know if you recognize them. This is 31, Your Honor. And then there'll be 23 pictures included with 31, all then marked in the bottom right-hand corner like our previous photos.
And looking
Yes.
through photos.
Taken on January 8th of 2007,
That's correct.
altered or changed in any way.
They don't appear to be.
Your Honor, I'd move for for the admission of People's Exhibit number 31 into evidence at this time.
No objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to keep, permission to publish? I'm going to keep them in front of you, and I'm going to then put them on the screen and just have you describe for the jury what we're looking at. So this is picture number 1. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at?
This is a picture of County Road 275, I believe that was, 215, sorry, County Road 215, and I'm facing north. And then I'm just going to be just a little bit north of the driveway of their residence.
So this is the road out in front of the house, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm going to advance then to the second slide. What are we looking at here?
I'm still standing on the road, but right at the apron of the driveway, facing north.
And when you say the driveway, you mean the Stermer driveway?
That's correct.
And that would be on the left of the photo?
Yes, going west.
I'm going to go then to the third photo. What are we looking at here?
This is looking west down the driveway, the Stermer residence, so you can see the address 66598 on the wooden post at the end of the driveway.
And I am going to advance now to photograph number 4. What are we looking at here?
That's just a closer view of the address at the end of the driveway.
And I'm going to advance then to slide 5. What are we looking at here?
This is the driveway as I'm proceeding closer to the residence, still facing west.
So this as you are going down the driveway, you are
That's-
taking pictures?
That's correct.
I'm going to go then to slide number 6. What are we looking at here?
Again, the driveway, just getting closer to the residence.
That's a long
And
driveway.
you mentioned that others were on scene. Is there any evidence in this picture then of others being on scene?
Yes, several vehicles, plus I see the fire truck.
And again, this was the day after the fire.
Correct.
I'm going to advance then to slide number 7. What are we looking at here?
Again, getting closer to the residence, still facing west on the driveway, closer to the fire truck and the other vehicles there.
I'm going to advance to then slide number 8. What are we looking at here?
This is
Thank
the
you.
front of the house. It faces east.
Very
You
much
can see
east.
several fire department personnel there.
I'm going to advance then to slide 9.
Okay, so for those of you who are not really used to living in rural areas, what I will tell you is that that's a very long driveway. And I know you're like, good boy, Mo, we can see. But the longer the driveway, that is adding up more cost to getting utilities added onto your house. So this is really, I mean, they probably paid more for the electric to be strung out there. Now, obviously, they're on their own, their own heating system. but the sewer line, all of that. So typically you will see a lot of longer driveways, but there might be areas in rural areas where you don't see this long of a driveway. Now, typically a lot of houses in rural America will have their own septic systems, so you really don't have to worry about, a lot of utilities. But that being said, Mo knows far too much of fireology and secluded areas. It was you, Fredo. That being said, I don't remember where I was January 2007. I was halfway done with my pregnancy with youngest or middle feral daughter. So yes, I can tell you that comfortably in 2007 in January, I was pregnant and could not have done this. Now, if you ask me if I ate the last can of SpaghettiOs, I can tell you I probably did.
What are we looking at here?
Again, a closer view of the front of the residence or east side of the residence.
I'm going to advance now to number 10. And what are we looking at here?
This is a picture of it would be the northeast corner of the residence.
So just to be clear, for those of us who are directionally challenged.
Okay, so this is the northeast corner, and I'm still trying to figure out why she took the van to the backyard to even be in a position to run over Todd. Now, if she says, because I think there's a front door and then the basement walkout, but I don't think there are side doors that are attached to anything. And what I mean by that is, yeah, this is a side door, but you're going to do about a 2-foot drop if you go out of there. It looks like they were intending to maybe build a deck on this side of the house. But why did she go into the backyard and run this man over? It doesn't, like, y'all, I have been Twitter paid before and done some really dumb stuff, but if you are going to get help, I just don't understand. And Denise Sells makes a good point. FYI, it is not unusual for the fire department to go the next day to check for flare-ups, rekindling of the fire, and to see if they could have done things differently for better results. So, that is good. I did not know that, but it makes sense now that I think about it.
Into the front door.
The front door would be yes.
To the left?
Yes, to the left.
And that would be then, my pointer is covering the overhang then to the front door?
That's correct.
And it would be then walking around to the right-hand side of the house?
That's correct.
And I'm going to advance then to slide number 10. And what are we looking at here?
This is the north side of the house. And you can see that the grade of the lawn appears that it's going to a walkout level to the back.
And I'm going to stop you to the left on the home. Do you know what this is? It would be kind of a brown area on the house.
Yeah, it appears that that was a service door, and the other one appears that it was some type of a slider door, but it didn't appear that there were any finished decks or any way to go out. It didn't appear that they were using them, actually.
So there were no improved decks coming off of those doors.
That's what it looked like to me.
And then I'm going to advance to slide 12. What are we looking at here?
Okay, so this is going to be, as I'm walking around the house again, so this is still the north side of the house, but probably it's the northwest side of the house.
So if I'm looking at the front of the house.
Okay, I have said it before and I will say it again. This is discriminatory towards people that do this. Because I don't know where north and south is. Look, I never claimed to be good at directions, but we keep throwing words around like north and south, and I don't know what they're talking about. This might be the reason to never ask me for directions, because all of my directions are going to be like, okay, you're going to go to the less crispy side of the house. Now it's the house that looks like they were fixing to have the deck there, but it's not. And I mean, JKD Buck, only a scotch. But yeah, I mean, this was an intense fire. I don't know what exactly they were using, if, a combination of everything. I do think a good thing to keep in a thought, or at least in the back of your head, is now, and again, this is according to Linda, but when they were constructing this home, so before they had the, heat system in, according to her, they would use kerosene or kerosene, heater in the main level, and it got some of that oil would, spill and seep into the subflooring. So this might be why the house went up so fast. Ooh, Yamaha biker, I think we could make a promotional exchange.
It's on the right-hand side, but the back corner of the house, is that correct?
That's correct.
So you're still just walking around
I'm
the home?
walking around the home, yep.
And I'm going to advance this to then slide 13, and what are you looking at here?
This is the back side of the residence, the west side, and you can see that the lower level is the walkout level or basement, and the upper level is the main floor level.
And I'm going to advance now to slide 14, and what are we looking at here?
This would be the southwest corner of the building, or the house.
So are we still looking at the back of the house here?
That's correct.
And are you walking up to then the other side of the house?
That's correct.
Which, if you're in the front of the house, this would be the left-hand side of the house.
That's correct.
I'm going to go ahead and go to number 15. What are we looking at here?
That would be the south side of the residence.
So again, if I'm in the front, looking at the front of the house, it'd be to the left.
That's correct.
And I'm going to advance now to slide 16. What are we looking at here?
This is the backyard, and I'm facing north. And you can see some evidence flags on the ground.
And do you know what those evidence flags were depicting from the day before?
Yes, they were marking where the van had parked.
And that's where you saw the van parked the night before.
That's correct.
We're going to advance now to 17. And what are we looking at here?
Again, the backyard facing north with the evidence flags indicating where the van was parked.
So the back of the home would be to the right-hand side of this picture, is that correct?
The back of the home would be to the right side, yes.
I'm going to advance then to slide 18. What are we looking at here?
Again, evidence markers, back side of the home as well.
Yeah, because here's the problem. Even if we say that the fire was accidental, the fact that Linda ran him over, I mean, you can get it down to, reckless homicide, but I don't think you can get her, even if her defense team, clears her of the fire, I don't know if you're going to be able to clear her from the reckless homicide, manslaughter of her running him over. I don't see how you're going to do that. And welcome, Deborah. The directions of north, south, east, and west have changed to A, B, C, and D. A is the address size that goes clockwise from there. I like that idea.
Depicting where the van was parked.
So, and this is where you saw the van parked the day before?
Yes.
And can you tell specifically then what those are marking?
I believe that they are marking where the tire tracks were.
I'm going to advance now to slide 19. What are we looking at here?
Again, this is the back side of the residence. I'm facing east now.
And are you looking at the back of the home here?
That's correct.
And again, the same evidence flags?
Yes.
I'm going to advance now to slide 20. What are we looking at here?
Well, it was like a lean-to horse barn area.
Okay, I have seen some hillbilly engineering. I have seen some redneck construction, but I have never seen a tractor trailer used to create a makeshift barn. Now, I'm not saying that many a hill truck hasn't had this idea, I just haven't seen it. Okay, alrighty. All right, I'll give you a hillbilly A+, because, I have never seen this. But, well, I am Princess. See, I must not have lived as far into hill truck country as I assumed. But there you go, you guys. If you have a semi-tractor trailer and would like to make yourself your own barn. There were not any cars on cinder blocks. But we do have a CrossFit tire right here. So I say they just, label it a gym and call it a day.
Again, that was in the backside of the residence.
When you're looking at the residence, was this lean-to on the left or the right?
Say that
If
again.
I'm looking at the front of the residence, was this lean-to on the left or the right?
The lean-to would have been on the right.
On the right-hand side?
I believe so. Hey, I don't understand your question.
So when you were walking around the home,
Okay.
if you're in the backyard,
Yes,
where would this be in relation to the tire tracks that you saw?
to the right.
To the right corner?
I believe so.
To the left.
Would it help
to the
refresh your
left,
memory if I showed
to
you a
the right,
report
to the right.
on where
Now
that
dip,
is located?
baby,
Sure.
dip. Come on here. Anyone else? This is true. JKD Buck can confirm this was in Michigan, not Indiana, where it is a law that you must have a car on cinder blocks in the yard. I have one. JKD Buck has one. And Denise Sells, I get that the people are using train cars and, tractor trailers. I have just never seen anything like that before. Our E-Club was made from several Connex boxes. The dames had a nice one that looked like a log cabin and ski lodge on the inside. They didn't turn the tractor trailer into a raised flower bed. I know, they get negative points. Now, the real question is, do they have a toilet bowl planter? Because you aren't classy unless you take, the old porcelain throne that was in your house, put it on your front lawn, and then put some petunias in it. Y'all think I'm joking. This is a thing. Okay, this has happened. I have seen it. My mother-in-law is rich and has 2 cars on blocks. I married for wealth. It's better, and it had a better satellite package from, the Dish Network. Yeah, I mean, JKD Buck doesn't want to brag or nothing, but one of them cars is a Corvair. And we are fixing to get it redone and everything. It's going to be beautiful.
Okay.
Do you know what direction?
Okay.
I may be confusing in terms of my questioning.
Okay.
Do you know what direction this shed was? Or this particular lean-to? Like in what corner of the property?
I believe it was on the southwest corner of the property.
On the southwest corner, so
Yes.
Did I confuse you with my back and front?
I think so.
So this would be on the southwest corner of the
Yes,
property?
yes, as I'm walking around, yes.
Okay. And I'm going to advance this now to 21. What are we looking at here?
It looks like a horse trough and pen for the horses
And
and
is-
the lean-to.
So this is the same lean-to that's in the other photo?
Yes.
Just the other side of it?
Yes.
I'm going to advance then to 22. What are we looking at here?
This is back out in the front of the house, and there was a gas can to the south of the porch and east of the residence, and that's a picture of that.
And so I just
Linda, you lit the house on fire and left the gas can? Allegedly, of course. I mean, this could just be a coinkydink beyond all coinkydinks. But your house goes on fire, there's a random gas can out. Linda, seriously?
just want to be clear what we're all looking at. Are you looking at this item here in the front yard?
Yes,
And you had a chance to examine what that was?
yes,
And you said it was a,
gas can.
I'm going to advance then to 22. What is this?
This is a closer picture of the gas can, and there appears to be like a nozzle there.
I'm going to advance then, I'm sorry, that is the bulk of the pictures. After these 2 days that you were on scene, what was your involvement in this investigation then, at that time?
Well, we continued with if any witnesses came forward. I got people that called into the sheriff's department. I would follow up on any leads. continue to support Detective Maziowski, and if he needed anything, I would follow up on anything with him. And, we continue to wait for laboratory reports to come back, and I wrote some search warrants also.
Did you participate with an interview with Ms. Kate Fox on May 17th of 2007?
Yes, myself and Lieutenant Stone, we both did.
And do you recall where that interview was taken, took place?
Yes, that was at her workplace.
And were you able to then speak to Ms. Fox that day?
Yes, we did.
And did you talk to Ms. Fox about any of the details of this case or any knowledge you had of this case before you did your interview?
No.
Was your interview to gain information from her of what she knew?
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Look at this, this is-
Oh, Lord, we're going to get slow and stupid, not just annoying and stupid. Gird your loins, everyone. All right, well,
Good afternoon, Ms. Rouse.
Good afternoon.
I would like to quickly go to the photo.
he's lying. This man has never done anything quickly ever. And just to prove that point, I would put us down to, just normal speed. But I don't want to hurt y'all, so you can do this in your own home, theater yourself. Pull up this stream, put it to 1. See if he sounds like he's quiet and ridiculous and takes forever.
Photo that you identified of a gas can that you stated that was on the premise when you arrived?
On the second day when I arrived.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. And I believe that's number 22 of the
Yes.
photos that you have. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. Now, if we could zoom in just a little bit on the gas can. Yes. Now,
Okay, defense, where are you going with this? Because I don't know, call me crazy, but if it was a bad fact that, they were suspecting my client of arson and they found, a gas can, would I go to it immediately? I mean, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him.
you took that photo?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, on January the 7th, when you arrived at the location, did you see that gas can in front of the house then?
No, I did not.
Did not?
No.
Can you explain to me or to the jury what you did see on the front of the house when you first arrived on January the 7th?
When I first arrived on January the 7th, got there and spoke to my lieutenant, and I didn't even go to the front of the house. I didn't even go near the house.
Okay.
I went and took pictures of Mr. Stermer, and I spoke with Mrs. Stermer. After that is when I went to the house, and I don't even believe I even walked around the full circle of the house.
So you say you did go to the house. Did you go to the front of the house, though?
No, I went to the north side and the back side.
So you never went to the front of the house on January the 7th?
I don't believe so. And it was dark. I didn't.
Okay. So what time did you arrive back at the house on January the 8th?
It would have been shortly after 9 a.m.
In the morning?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not your department had
9 a.m.? Yes, 9 a.m. indicates morning. You didn't have to ask that follow-up question of 9 a.m. in the morning because a.m. is indicative of it being in the morning.
secured the property as a investigation?
Yes.
Had it been taped off?
It had been taped off, but reserve officers posted.
I didn't understand your answer.
Reserve officers posted, standing guard, protecting the scene.
So you're saying that there were individuals that was posted over the night?
Yes.
They were there when you arrived back on January the 8th?
I don't know if I saw them when I was there, when I came back.
Or did you see anyone there when you arrived back on January the 8th?
When we got there, the fire department was there and the fire marshal was there.
On January the 8th?
That's correct.
Do you know if anyone else had reference to you this gas can that was in the front of the yard?
Nobody referenced it. This is the first time I saw it when I took this picture.
Okay. And that wasn't the only gas can that you saw on the premises, right?
Right.
Okay. Could you tell us where the other gas cans were that you saw on the premises?
The other gas cans, fuel cans, multiple different colored fuel cans, were all in a shed-type building behind the house, all put away.
Will you call them fuel cans or you call them gas cans?
Well, there were blue ones and there were red ones.
Okay.
I don't know. Gas cans.
Gas cans.
Blue and
there
red.
So would it be fair to say that there were multiple gas cans that was on the premises, right?
Yes, the other ones were all.
Yes, sir. There were multiple gas cans. One of them was just really close to the house that was torched. I can't imagine why she didn't take more pictures of the other gas cans. I mean, the fact that she didn't use a red Solo cup has me questioning her cop abilities right now. Her copability as a cop.
In a little structure shed building.
But you took pictures of them, right?
I did.
And the pictures that you took was part of your total investigation, is that correct?
I was taking pictures as I was walking around the house, yes.
Yes. And did you submit all of the gas cans for any type of forensic analysis?
No, I did not.
Why not?
This gas can was different than the other ones as it wasn't put away and it was laying out in the yard. And that was the one that Detective Leroy, the fire marshal, took with him.
So in other words, you was instructed by the state fire marshal?
No, she's a detective in her own right. She doesn't have to be instructed by nobody. I mean, sir, I know you are probably of the generation that probably thinks that women have to be instructed to go do stuff. No, they don't. She was a detective, and using her detective girl brain, she was like, our fire gas can kind of out of place near fire. Just gonna take this gas can. No one had to tell her. You're kind of self-leading when you get to the, level of detective, I would think. Now, that being said, we did have, it was a Florida case and I covered it. But that detective who had to be told or wasn't told where evidence was, so didn't collect it.
About that can?
No, when I found that can, I didn't take it off the property. Scott Leroy, or the fire marshal, was there on the property, and he said that he would take it at a later time and did.
At a later time?
Yeah, he didn't take it when I was there.
What was the condition of the can when you saw it?
Just exactly.
Did it have mud on it?
I didn't even pick it up. It was just exactly the way it was on the ground.
Did you not, you say you didn't pick it up?
No, it was seized.
She said she didn't pick it up. In fact, she just pointed to the picture where she just... Is anyone else smelling burnt toast? Because I swear this woman is answering his questions and he's like, so you didn't touch it. She should just... This is why I wouldn't be a detective, because I'd be like, no, I poked it with a stick. That being said, again, reason number 90,012,000,012, I'm not going to be a cop.
As part of the search warrant and recorded on a tabulation, but Detective Leroy took that can from the scene. I didn't package it, I didn't take it.
But when you came back on the 8th.
This is when it is, yes.
But you had a search warrant, right?
Yes,
And the search warrant was for you to seize certain items on the property, right?
Yes.
As part of a probable cause investigation, right?
yes.
Okay.
But instead of
Do
you
what you're
seizing
putting
it,
down.
you let somebody else remove it.
I would say we both said it was going to be seized, and I recorded it on my tabulation, but Detective Leroy said he would package it and take it with him to the laboratory.
So if your report stated that is part of the items that you seized, that would be incorrect.
Well, it was part of my search warrant, we seized it, but he transported it from that scene to the laboratory.
It never was recorded with the property of the chain of custody with the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office, right?
Yes, I believe it was.
It was recorded,
Yes,
but not taken.
right, correct.
Well, Dave, if you've noticed, our defendant is no longer wearing a headband. So now that being said, I didn't feel like back teasing my hair, so I'm not going to get the volume that she does. But you know, the thought is there. Yamaha, this is why I wouldn't be a cop. It's a softer look. I don't know that I almost think the cardigan is a little too dressed down for church, but I do think it's a softer look rather than her sort of Karen Reed-esque look on Monday. So I do think that it softens her. I almost think that it works better for her optically to be as frumpy as she was on, last week. I think that her Monday look was way too polished. I think this is a better look, but I don't know. This woman ran over a man in order to go, in her telling of it, to go get her husband help. She ran him over.
Is that a standard procedure that you had at that time with the sheriff's office in reference to the chain of custody of items when you have a search warrant that's detailed in reference to what the search warrant is for?
Correct. Well, we both seized it, but he removed it from the scene and took it with him.
But Mr. Leroy didn't have a search warrant, did he?
No, I did.
Yeah. And you never saw the gas can again?
Not after he took it, no.
You don't know whether or not there was any gas in the can at all, do you?
No, I do not.
And you stated that you didn't seize any of the other gas cans? You just took pictures of them?
That's correct.
Now, when you arrived on the 7th, you actually received a call from Detective Stump, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you first arrived, did you get directions from Detective Stump as to what your duties or your assignment was to be?
Yes, I did.
And was your first duty or your first assignment to take pictures of Mr. Stermer, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. When you approached the location where Mr. Stermer was there anyone else there with Mr. Stermer's body?
I believe the medical examiner investigator was, and I'm sure there were, I just don't remember. Possibly Deputy Evans.
The medical examiner investigator was there, and Detective and Deputy Evans, right?
Yes.
Okay. Was Mr. Scott Leroy there?
I don't recall if he was, but he may have been. I just don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall anyone removing anything off of the body of Mr. Stermer?
When I was taking my pictures, items were being lifted away so I could take pictures. I don't recall anybody removing anything from him when I was there, no.
You know, what items, you said items was being removed.
So when I got there to take the pictures, he was covered with a tarp, and then things were peeled back so I could take pictures.
So that gives me my next question. Did you take a picture of Mr. Stermer exactly as the body lay when you arrived?
I did.
With all the items that was on top of it?
I did.
You did?
I
You
did, yes.
And you submitted that picture to?
Yes, it was the first one with the tarp, the blue tarp.
The blue tarp?
That's how I remember, correct?
Okay. And on the blue tarp, was there some other clothing on top of him?
Yes.
Okay.
Why did they? Oh, you know what? I was going to ask my own question, which is why did they put a tarp on the man? And then I remembered that it was snowing and raining and kind of being yucky outside. So I'm guessing they put the blue tarp over him to, keep any trace evidence from being washed away. That being said, It is good for him to question the sort of chain of custody of the gas can because that is, a big issue. The gas can, the state is directly trying to link with Linda, the gasoline on Todd Stermer's clothing, and, the fire. So if there are any questions about the chain of custody as far as this gas can, then those weaknesses need to be exploited by the defense. That being said, I do believe that the very next witness will be Mr. Leroy. Oh, no. Next witness is, our favorite girl who's got stuff to do. But then it'll be Scott Leroy. So that would be who I would guess they would have to ask those questions to. But this is something that the defense needs to take point on. Now, what we did learn yesterday from the traced evidence person is that the Michigan Crime Lab is in fact very, very limited in what they can learn as far as evidence of accelerants. They can basically just do a go, no-go kind of test on do these clothing, do these samples have a flammable liquid on them. They aren't able to, link two sets of flammable liquids, take the unknown and a known and try to put those together. They aren't able to tell, if this gasoline is, linked to this gasoline. So it is very different and less sensitive. Now, I do believe that the defense has their own testing on some of these items that will be brought up.
And that picture was provided to the district attorney's office as part of your investigation?
All my pictures were turned in
Okay.
to the prosecutor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And so after you completed your pictures, what did you do then?
Well, I went and put my camera away, and then I was told that Ms. Stermer was in a red pickup truck, and it turns out that she was in an ambulance, and that's when I spoke with her.
Okay. And do you recall who else was in the ambulance with Ms. Stermer?
Yes, a woman named Gail Crandall was in the ambulance with her.
Okay. Did you take any pictures of Ms. Stermer?
No, I did not.
You did not?
No.
Okay. Well, what did you do when you approached the ambulance and Ms. Stermer was in there with Ms. Crandall?
I stepped in and introduced myself and started asking the questions that we just talked about.
What questions did you ask?
I started off by asking her for telephone numbers. I asked her about her children, how many, and she told me that. And then I just went into asking her to tell me if she could, from the time she got up in the morning to the time that we were there, of what happened.
So was your interview considered to be an investigation for the cause of the fire?
No, this was just a preliminary information from Ms. Stermer of what may have happened. This wasn't an interrogation. It was just some preliminary information from her as to what happened.
Okay. But at some point, you had Ms. Stermer to provide you her clothes. Isn't that correct?
No, that's not correct.
You didn't?
No, I did not.
She wouldn't have been the officer to ask him that, because if you remember the timeline of that evening, at this point, Linda is already in the ambulance having exchanged her clothing. So she was asked to do that by, I believe it was Detective Verge. But she had already been asked to turn over her clothes at that point. So this officer would not have been the one to tell her that she needed to hand over her clothes. She would have already have gotten those clothings, or those clothings would have already been collected at this point.
Were you at the ambulance when she removed her clothes?
No, she never removed her
Changed clothes?
Never, no.
So what else did you do when you asked her about what had happened that day? What her activities had been that day?
I don't understand your question.
Well, you asked her about what she had done that morning, right?
I asked her to tell me the events of the day starting when she got up till the present time. She started offering me that she got up before Todd. She estimated that to be about 7 a.m. And she continued telling me information.
Well, were you in the ambulance when Ms. Stermer changed clothes?
No,
No, she just said that. She just
You didn't
said
have a
that. Start
conversation with
listening.
Ms. Crandall?
no. When I interviewed Ms. Crandall, I asked Ms. Crandall what happened to her clothes.
You asked Ms. Crandall what happened to her clothes?
Yes, I believe I asked her in the interview if she remembered what happened to Ms. Stermer's clothes.
Why would you ask that question?
Because I didn't have them, I never took them, and I was wondering if she knew who took them.
But why did you engage in a conversation about who took Ms. Stermer's clothes?
Because it appeared that nobody actually knew who had her clothes before Sergeant Franks got them.
So now you know that somebody had her clothes.
Somebody had her clothes at
You
one
said
point.
Sergeant Franks.
Sergeant Franks is who I was told had her clothes, but somebody gave them to him, and I don't know who that is.
Who told you that?
That was part of the investigation way back when.
Well, you prepared an incident report right after your appearance on the Stermer property on January the 7th. Do you recall preparing an incident report?
Yes.
May I approach you on it? I'd like to show you, see if you can refresh your memory in reference to that report that's dated January 7th, 2007. Is that,
Yeah, what part?
well, do you recognize the report?
Yes.
The whole report?
Yes.
Okay. So, in your report, there's no reference to you talking to Ms. Stermer in the ambulance, right?
There are two reports there. This is the first one.
One is
And-
dated January the 7th, the other one is dated January the 8th, right?
No, the other one is dated January 7th as well.
Okay.
This is just the initial when I briefed and took the photographs.
But it's an incident report, right?
That's correct.
And the incident report references to individuals that you either took instructions from other officers or individuals that you had communications with, right?
That's correct.
And as part of your investigation, you were considered to be, at that time, you were a detective, right?
That's correct.
And you and Detective Maciowski became the lead investigators for the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office in reference to this case. Is that correct?
Actually, Detective Maziowski was in charge of the case.
And what was your position in the case?
I was a detective and I assisted him when necessary.
But on that date, you was considered a detective, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so my question, my point was, is that
You have one? Please
you
tell
never
us.
referenced to the conversations that you had with Ms. Stermer in that report, right?
Not in this first report.
Did you have another report that you prepared for January the 7th?
Yes.
Have you reviewed that report?
Yes.
Prior to your testimony here today?
Yes.
When?
It was given to me in a packet from the prosecutor.
Today?
No.
Before she testified.
Would that report have the conversations that you had with Ms. Stermer?
Yes.
Okay. And that report, would it have who seized her clothes and what happened to her clothes?
Not in that report. It would have been probably when I went to on the 8th is when I would have had the reference that the individuals that took the clothing.
Now,
Sir, do you have a
Ms. Rout, after you finished your investigation at the Stermer property on January the 7th, what did you begin to start doing in reference to your activities concerning this case?
Like I said, individuals were calling into the Sheriff's Department with information. When they did, I would contact them and interview them as part of any relevancy to the case.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that this case turned into an information gathering by calls being made to your office?
I wouldn't say that would be fair to say that. We had lab reports that we were waiting on. We developed individuals to talk to. Some people did call in with information, that's correct.
Would it, friends that knew the Stermers, did they contact you?
Well, I believe, yeah, we did get some that were friends of the Stermers that contacted us.
And did you investigate information that they provided to you?
Yes,
And so did you make reports on individuals that you received information from that you tried to verify or corroborate?
yes.
Did some of that information seem kind of loud to you?
do what now? Hear your
I'll rephrase it, Judge.
Okay.
Sure. In reference to some of the information that you received, did some of it seem kind of far-fetched as it relates to?
Your Honor, this is speculation.
I'm just asking her.
I'll allow it.
I'm asking if she speculated it was speculation.
Well, when anybody gives us information, whether it seems far-fetched or not, we try to find the relevancy or accuracy in that.
Okay. And in trying to find out the accuracy of that information, you would go out and try to corroborate it with other individuals, right?
That's correct.
But you also would keep it as part of your report, right?
That's correct.
So, do you recall interviewing a Jeremiah Moyer?
Yes.
Do you know where you interviewed him at?
I couldn't say for certainty 18 years ago, but
May I approach, Your Honor?
Well, I mean, you already started to approach before you
See if you
asked.
can refresh your memory on this report.
yes,
You can?
yes,
And did you try to corroborate the information that was provided to you in that report?
yes. He's the one who actually called the Sheriff's Department, and then I went to his residence and talked to him.
And what did you find out?
Objection, Your Honor, this is all going to be hearsay.
Your Honor, it's a report.
No, but she's going to be asked.
Is that
or
your
she's gonna
response, that it's the police report?
Yes, is this your report?
Yes,
You,
Then I'll sustain the objection as to hearsay if that's
Thank you,
your
Your Honor.
only response.
Did you also interview a Serena Moyer?
yes,
Okay. Did either one of these individuals provide you with information that was corroborated in reference to Miss Linda Stermer causing a fire?
no,
Okay.
Okay. Sir, stop assaulting us with your paper clipping.
Do you recall interviewing a Kelly Stermer?
By telephone.
Okay. And nothing in the interview that you had with Miss Kelly Stermer corroborated any information about Miss Linda Stermer causing the fire, right?
Correct.
Do you recall interviewing an individual by the name of Dean Joseph White?
He again called the sheriff's department, correct.
And you had a rather lengthy conversation with that individual, right?
He called and actually it was transcribed, yes.
His interview was transcribed on the phone?
It was recorded on the phone and then that was transcribed.
Okay. And nothing in reference to that interview had anything to do with Miss Stermer causing the fire, right?
Nothing.
I'm going to stop at this point. These are not witnesses in this trial. I don't know if we're going to go through the entire 2 years of everybody that was interviewed. I don't see how they're relevant.
Your Honor, this is part of the investigation in reference to this case, and we had requested the discovery of all police reports that was provided.
Your Honor, I'm going to say it's
Listen,
outside the scope of the record.
Your Honor, this
How
is,
many of these,
Oh, and I also think that we need to have this conversation outside the presence of the jury if we're going to continue it.
okay. How many of these names, how many are there that I've, okay, I'll allow if it's only 2 more.
Now, this is a fairly underhanded thing, but it also is okay, it's not an underhanded, it is more of a sleight of hand thing, but the defense is showing that, people were calling in with their, ideas of what had happened and what could have happened and, all those things. And so the defense is showing that there were people that called in and said, I know how this has happened, and obviously nothing was able to be corroborated. The fact that, the detectives went through and took every one of these tips, even if it did sound far-fetched, took it and ran down the lead, kind of shows that they were doing a pretty okay job. Not so much, showing that they didn't do a good job. That being said, he wants to show how, basically the police didn't have any reason to go after Linda. They took some far-fetched claims and then they tried to amalgamate this into a case.
I was waiting on the answer to
And what was the question again?
Dean Joseph White.
Yes.
The information you obtained from that individual was not corroborated to establish any evidence that Ms. Stermer caused the fire, right?
No, he just told me of threats.
And you stated that you received a call from a Kate Fox. Is that correct?
No, I did not receive a call from Kate Fox.
Did you interview a Kate Fox?
I did, as a result of another interview.
As a result of what?
Another interview.
What interview was that?
I received a call from a Kathy Ilge.
Kathy Ilge?
That's correct.
She told you to call Kate Fox?
Your Honor, it's hearsay.
How did you wind up contacting Kate Fox?
From the information that Kathy Ilge told me.
And did you do a formal interview with Kate Fox
At her workplace with Lieutenant Stump.
at her workplace?
That's correct.
And were you able to corroborate any information that Kate Fox provided to you?
Yes, I did corroborate some of the stuff she told me, yes.
What were you able to corroborate?
Information about a post office box, information about an individual.
And what else?
Your Honor, again, we're going into hearsay. If he wants to ask generic or the things she followed up on, I think that would be appropriate, but to actually ask about the specifics, we're getting into hearsay.
think he's asking about what she did to follow up on what information she received. Is that what you're?
Right.
Okay, maybe just ask it like that.
So did you receive information and followed up on that information you received from Kate Fox?
Yes.
Okay.
So, sounds like she did detective work. Congratulations, defense attorney. She did detective.
And did you participate in any interviews of other individuals that were housed in the Van Buren County Jail?
I believe I did. Which ones, I don't remember. Sergeant Maziowski or Detective Maziowski, they were his interviews. I recall sitting in on some of them. I don't think I sat in on all of them.
Can I have just a second, Judge?
Ooh, Linda's lawyering. Linda posted, noted it. Oh, Wolf. No, Wolf, get this man off the stand. Off the podium.
Now, I just want to go back one question this route. When you interviewed Miss Stermer, was she, in your opinion, in a state of shock?
I wouldn't say she was in shock. She did cry on and off during our interview, yes.
When you interviewed Kate Fox, you said you interviewed her at her work?
Yes, with Lieutenant Stump.
Okay. Did you obtain any type of documents that was provided to you from Kate Fox in reference to Ms. Stermer?
Did I obtain any documents?
Yes.
Probably after a month after speaking to Kate Fox, I did some search warrants, yes.
Okay. And what was those search warrants for?
Those are search warrants of phone records.
Okay. Was there any other search warrants that you issued, that you saw?
Probably periodically through the next several months and probably even the next year.
Okay. For the next year?
I believe there were some subpoenas that the prosecutor's office asked us to
Sir?
serve for phone records, yes.
Okay.
Ooh, I don't
I have no
know.
further questions, Your Honor.
It'd probably be like, don't waste the jury's time. They already don't like us. Also, don't be a dick. The jury also doesn't like us. Oh, for heaven's sake. If your lawyer doesn't know which questions...
Did Ms. Stermer tell you that she heard a loud scream when you were interviewing her in reference to Mr. Stermer?
When she was in the laundry room, she heard Mr. Stermer yell there was a fire. That's what she told me.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Just quickly, Your Honor. Is it common for law enforcement agencies to work together on an investigation?
Absolutely.
And is it common to then work with the fire investigator and the state police then on investigations?
Absolutely.
And you share information?
Yes, we do.
And I just want to clarify, Ms. Stermer did not remove any of her clothing in your presence.
No, she did not.
You were not part of that?
No, I was not.
And did you provide multiple reports as part of the overall report during this investigation?
Yes, I did.
What are they called, supplemental reports?
That's correct.
And you would have had several supplemental reports
Absolutely.
documenting everything that you just went over on the stand.
Absolutely.
And out of the people that defense counsel asked you about, there were several names. Were any of those individuals, were you able to determine if any of those individuals were present at the scene?
None of them were present at the scene.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 32. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
And why do you recognize that photo?
This is the way the body was when I arrived on scene.
Changed or altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, people would move to admit People's Exhibit number 32 into evidence at this time.
No objections, Your Honor.
Permission to publish? I'm sorry.
We'll receive it, and you may publish it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, you don't want
I think this will be the first time that the state is showing any sort of graphic pictures of Todd.
Your Honor, just so that we don't bring up anything that has not been admitted, I'm just going to pass this around to the jury. Thank you. And can you just describe, as I'm getting ready to pass this around to the jury, what that picture is a picture of?
That was the position of the body when I arrived on scene and asked to take pictures that I was talking about, the blue covering carpet.
So that was exactly the picture you were describing in your testimony with defense counsel.
That's correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Jury, questions? Any questions of this witness? I've got a couple.
Alrighty, we're gonna let them do the dance of is it lawful law?
On the day of the fire, were you in a position to observe if the gas can was
You
in the
are
location
right
that you
in
saw it on the
Mary.
night?
Yes.
I think it was at the 8th or the 9th.
It would have been the 8th.
The day after, were you in a position, on the day of the fire, were you in a position to observe if it was in the location you saw it when you went back on?
I did not see the gas can on the night that, January 7th, that I was there. I saw it the next morning when I was there on the 8th.
And when you asked Linda Stermer about phone numbers, did she give you a landline phone number?
She gave me a landline, house phone number, and a cell phone number.
Counsel, any questions in light of those questions and answers?
No, Your Honor.
No? Jury, any other questions in light of those? No? May she be excused from her subpoena, counsel?
I would ask that you please be excused, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, you're all done, and you're excused from your subpoena.
The defense is
Ms.
wrong.
Iterveen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Please call Connie Calhoun to the stand, please.
And now you guys, Connie Calhoun, the woman who had stuff to do, therefore ignored her subpoena. And then when she had ignored her subpoena and found out that there was a bench warrant for her arrest, went ahead and contacted Linda Stermer's boyfriend, who has been acting as a pseudo investigator for the case. I don't know. Now, to say the state was not happy about anything in relation to Connie Calhoun is stating it mildly. In fact, Miss Calhoun has been cooling her heels in, the general lockup as she waits for her chance to be a part of this trial. Now, for those of you who don't remember who Connie Calhoun kind of fits in this case, Connie is Mike Mathelhini's girlfriend. So she was there. They were one of the first two people that were, present at the scene helping Linda. She was actually the one that was on the phone, the voice that didn't sound like a police siren. That was Connie Calhoun's voice. And I'm guessing she's going to cry on stand. Now, for those of us who are, anxiously awaiting whether she would be, drug-free or not, well, according to the tests in the jail, she was not. I know you're shocked.
Before you have a seat, I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. I'll have you have a seat. And, ma'am, if you could maybe hand me those two documents, those were for another witness, I think. Lump those back. Okay, are those exhibits? Okay, thank you. Ms. Calhoun, if you could tell us your full name and spell your last, please?
Sure, it's Connie Lynn Calhoun, Calhoun.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Calhoun, do you recall where you were living in January 7th of 2007?
Yes,
And where were you living?
County Road 215.
And who did you live with at that time?
Michael Matheny.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Michael Matheny.
And did you live together in the home?
Yes.
And do you recall what you were doing that day,
Which day?
on January 7th of 2007?
Yes. Mike and I were going bowling. We went bowling.
Did you usually go bowling on Sundays?
Yeah, every Sunday. Earl.
Do you recall what time you guys used to go bowling?
No.
Is that a regular occurrence on a Sunday afternoon for you?
It was in the afternoon.
Pardon me?
It was in the afternoon.
And where was your residence in relation to Todd and Linda Stermer's residence?
We were after the residence, so I guess that would be south.
Did your property lines touch?
Yes.
So you were neighbors.
We were.
So tell me what happened when you left to go bowling that day.
Mike and I were pulling out of our driveway, and we could see smoke, looked like smoke coming from the Sturmer's house.
So you saw that from your driveway?
Yes.
And once you saw that smoke, what did you do?
We immediately went over there to pull. We left our driveway, went onto the County Road 215, and then went into their driveway.
So you pulled into the Stermer driveway?
Yes.
And what did you see when you pulled into the Stermer driveway?
Bowling. So I guess they had a standing Sunday bowling date. And have a great lunch, Wolfram. Thank you for doing your Modly Mod duties. Go get some food. I mean, that's Maury Povich and Connie Chung. Ew.
Linda Sturmer's van,
And
the house.
thank you, Tim. And I've got tags, yay. So Tim gifted 5 Mo in the Deep End memberships, and those went to Average Deb, Cindy, Anna Pikarsky, Pickled Tink, and Mally Mick. So congratulations. If I have mispronounced any of your names, I apologize. I graduated before No Child Left Behind. Won't someone think of the children? Well, they didn't before I graduated. Thank you very much. And let me get those tags made.
Looked like it was on fire.
And do you recall where the van was positioned when you saw it?
I don't.
Do you recall how close it was to the house?
Not really.
Was it in the driveway?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's hard to explain because how our driveways were. We pretty much like made our paths ourselves. So, I mean, it was. I mean, it was in the path that you would take, but it's not like a paved driveway. It's like a dirt driveway.
So it was on the dirt driveway?
I believe so.
And was that the dirt driveway leading out to County Road 215?
Yes.
And so you're pulling down the driveway. What was her van doing?
I don't really recall.
But you remember seeing it in front of the house?
I do.
And as you went down the driveway, what did you see the van do?
Linda's van. It's been so long. It's hard to really remember details. I just remember the van going around the back of the house. At what point I can't really remember.
And do you recall testifying under oath on this in a previous hearing?
You know, it's been a long time. So
This heifer don't remember nothing. Look, she doesn't even remember if she's done her roots. So honestly, not that I can throw any stones because I got some blonde showing, but that being said, look, she's a busy woman. She's got stuff going on.
there's a lot of things that's happened since then, so it's hard to say.
Do you remember testifying?
I do remember testifying.
And if I showed you your prior testimony, would it help refresh your memory?
Sure, yes.
I'm going to say crapshoot. Tammy, this is the girlfriend, you know, the lady who decided not to show up when she was subpoenaed because she had stuff to do. Well, this is, so Michael Matheny, not Matthew Matheny, but Michael Matheny. So the first neighbor, he and his girlfriend were the first ones on the scene. She is actually the woman who was doing the talking and tried to call 911, not the screaming in the background. But definitely this is the witness that the state really wanted to get in to kind of corroborate, you know, with Mr. Matheny. that, this is what happened. These are the shirts. She called 911. Linda didn't, but she decided not to show up for her subpoena. So,
So I'm going to show you your prior testimony. I'm going to have you take a look at this, the bottom of this page, which would be page 72, as well as on the top page of 73. Could you read through that, and when you're done, you can just then look up when you're done reading through that?
she must be really cold. She's got a jacket and a hoodie on, both zipped up.
Does that help refresh your memory?
Okay, yeah, yes.
And tell me then, after refreshing your memory, when you were driving down the driveway, what the van was doing.
Facing our vehicle, like, as we were coming towards each other.
So you were coming towards each other on the driveway?
Yes,
And were you able to see who was driving?
yes,
And who was that?
Linda.
And once your vehicles started going towards each other and you're looking at her, did the van make any turns or changes in the direction?
I mean, at what point, I don't know, but I know it had moved. The vehicle moved.
It moved? Where did it move to?
I can just tell you where it kind of ended up. I don't really recall like where exactly it had moved.
Did you see it leave the driveway?
Yeah, it left the driveway, so it went towards around the house.
Towards around the house, you said?
Yes, so I don't know which direction, so it would be going down. I guess it would be south, I think.
If you're looking at it, do you recall if it was left or right?
Okay, so it would be on my left.
To your left?
How she went down, yeah, I don't really, it's hard to say.
You remember her going around to the house, the back of the house?
I do.
So let me ask you this. Once you saw her going around to the back of the house, what did you do?
I don't know.
Did you get out?
At some point we did. Everything is a big blur.
Where did you?
This incident or the last 18 years? Because I think we need to narrow this down. Where do things start getting blurry for you? Because I feel like that's going to really help, narrow down our questions. So when was the last clear memory you have? Let's start there. And then we can whittle our way down to, where we need to be. Because if you don't remember anything from yesterday, then we can pretty much go ahead and guarantee you don't remember anything from 18 years ago. So let's do it that way.
Did you guys stop your vehicle?
Up top, on the top of the house, the top part of the, it would be in front, or well, I guess it would be considered the front, like as you're approaching the house.
At the front of the house?
Yeah,
And at that time, was the van in the back of the house?
yeah.
And then what did you do then at that point?
I don't really recall.
Did you get out?
I did at some point I did get out, yes.
What did you do when you got out of the van? I'm sorry, out of your vehicle. I misspoke. Please strike that.
When I got out of our truck, I don't know.
Did you call 911?
I did call 911, yeah.
Did you tell them what was going on?
I did,
Were you upset?
yeah.
Did you, at that point, see Todd?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And where?
And yes, let's go, Brandon. This case happened in January of 2007. Now, Linda was initially convicted in 2010. Now, in 2018, the conviction was overturned, and the state has, pushed for a retrial. So we are finally at the retrial. Chucky says, the 80s is a blur to me, but judging by some of the pictures and the odd VHS video, I apparently had a very good time. I didn't have that much fun in the 80s. to be fair, my mom wasn't a fan of minors drinking, so, daggone it. Why can I get a fun mom, Drew Barrymore?
Where was Todd?
He was on the ground by the house.
He was on the ground? And you said by the house?
Yeah.
And you saw him once you got out?
Yeah, I was out of the vehicle.
And did you get close to Todd?
I did.
Did you see Linda at that time?
I did see Linda.
And what did you see Linda doing?
When we came across Todd,
When you got out of the van, tell me what you saw Linda do.
I don't recall.
Did you see her get out of her van?
I don't recall.
Did you go to the backyard?
Yes, so Squab Bob, she does in fact have 3 different types of blonde hair. Now, some of this is her roots and she's coming in kind of maybe silver toned. Some of it is she picked a blonde and didn't lift properly and didn't tone her hair after, so she got a lot of orange and brass. That being said, look, no amount of prayer is going to lift you up from a dark brown to a platinum blonde in one setting. So you're going to end up with orange tone, and you're going to have to then tone your hair and then lift again. You're not going to go from black hair to, platinum blonde unless you go to an actual stylist who knows what the hell they're doing.
I don't recall.
So once you saw Todd, did you stop there?
Yeah, I didn't go any further.
And did you see then what happened as you were standing by Todd?
I mean, not really. I don't recall most of it.
Okay. Did you remember what Linda was doing with Todd?
No,
What do you remember?
I don't remember a lot. I kind of blacked it out.
I think you have a point, Chucky.
If I let you read your prior testimony, would that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Let's go. As the only woman in the known universe who dyes her hair to cover up her blonde, I don't know. I do say that I know a lot of people that put blonde in their hair. I always get weird looks from salon women when they're like, "So you dyed your hair red?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "But you have naturally blonde hair." And I'm like, "Yeah." On balance, I don't think the state needed her. I think we have heard the 911 call, and that is my worry that the defense is going to use this witness to play the 911 call again. And I agree with you, Chucky. I feel like this woman has been much more upset by this than, it appears Linda is right at the current moment. Now, that being said, Linda did get very emotional when the 911 phone call was played. I'd be lucky to realize my wife dyed her hair blonde, let alone random women. Not on a priority list these days. They're true.
Have you look. Just gonna have you take a look at that while you take a drink of water, okay? Just look at that page when you're ready. And then you can just look up and tell me if that help refreshes your memory.
Great success. I mean, she has been being held in the jail. She did have to pay $1,000 bond to get out. And I do think that she has some struggles with substance abuse. So, no, let's go, Brandon. She didn't do it. This is actually one of the first witnesses on the stand. And Lynn Dalton said, or she was one of the first witnesses at the scene, not on the stand. And you're surprised that women today still think that they can have dark brown hair and buy blonde color and it will work. Yeah, it doesn't work. Nope, nope. You can go darker at home. You cannot go lighter at home with your hair. Figure I should probably specify that one. And part of me wants to be cynical and think, oh, Linda saw someone crying and getting attention. But the other part of me, thinks that these two were probably, kind of close to each other, knew each other's names, and maybe just seeing her brings her back to the day that she lost Todd. Now, I will tell you guys that thus far, what the state has presented, you haven't convinced me that this fire was not caused or wasn't accidental. Now, the big question for me is still going to be how the defense makes her running him over an accident. That's always been a big question for me. And what the state has that's going to show that this fire was intentionally, set.
What did you see Linda do? Did that help refresh your memory?
Yeah.
And when you were by Todd, what did you see Linda do?
Linda covered Todd with her body, top of his body.
So when you say she covered Todd with her body, was she laying on him?
Yeah, she was like laying covered on the top of him. Like,
Was Todd alive at that point?
I don't think so. I mean, it was hard to tell.
Did you see him breathing?
J.K. Debug, no, this is actually the girlfriend of the gentleman, the neighbor that was one of the first witnesses. She was the one that was on the 911 call. She doesn't seem like a threat to anyone, am I right? Well, again, I just want the case to get to the point. I want the state to have, and I do understand why this has taken so long to get through, because the defense has been taking forever to get to a point and asking ridiculous pedantic questions that don't amount to anything. So there has been sort of a breakup in the flow, but it feels like in other trials we don't get to like day 4 or 5 without getting any, pertinent evidence into why we think this is a damn crime.
I don't recall. I want to say I think he was, but it was hard to tell because he was so badly burned.
Did you see them move Todd's body?
Yeah,
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And do you know where they moved him to?
Away from the house. I remember they were concerned about some tanks, maybe, possibly inside the house, or some explosion they were worried about, possibly. So they moved him.
Did you see what they moved him in?
I think it was like a sled or some kind of whatever was on the property that they could find. Maybe some wooden pallets. or something like that.
I'm sorry,
Like
what's
wood pallets or a sled or something?
like a sled thing?
Yeah, it was,
And did you talk to Linda about what had happened?
I may have asked what had happened, but I don't recall what she said. I may have asked,
If I show you your past trial your transcript, would it help refresh your memory?
it would.
Chucky says the word of the day is brought by pedantic. Object or adjective like a pedant, overly concerned with formal rules and trivial points of learning, being showy of one's knowledge, often in a boring manner, being finicky or fastidious. Yes, I believe pedantic is what this defense team is. She does a little bit, yes.
I'm going to start here and then go to the next page. Just read through that. And after you've had a chance to read that, you can just look up. Did that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
And can you tell me then what Linda told you had happened?
She was doing laundry in the basement.
And did she tell you if she heard anything?
She did. She said she heard Todd scream.
Did you ask her if she had run over Todd?
I don't recall.
You looked at your trial transcript. Would it help refresh your memory?
It would.
I'm going to have you actually just continue reading there
Okay.
on the page that I gave you. You have a conversation about her running Todd over with the van.
Yeah, I didn't see that in here. I didn't.
To be fair, I will say, Chucky, that, miscommunications can happen in any language. All you have to do is be married. I can check my math on that one. I'm peeked into my peak of Chuck's peak. Yes, all different peaks.
Do you remember writing out a statement when you talked to law enforcement?
I don't remember.
If I showed you a copy of a statement, could you recognize your handwriting and determine if this is yours?
Yes.
Let me have you just take a look at that. Do you recognize that?
I recognize my.
Also, maybe pull the microphone a little
She
closer.
did not
Yeah, I
pass.
recognize my handwriting.
Did you write that?
Yes, I recognize it.
So I'm going to direct your attention then to your handwritten statement. Can you just read that when you've had an opportunity to look up?
Okay.
Did that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
And so did you have a conversation with her about if she had run over Todd Stermer with the van?
Yes.
And what'd she say?
That she thought that she had.
And later on, did you continue to have discussions with Ms. Stermer about what had happened after that day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had.
And did she mention anything about fighting with Mr. Stermer or anything the day that you talked to her? at the fire?
I don't recall.
So when you looked at your statement from your testimony, did you say that she had said that?
No.
No? I'm just going to have you look at the other pages that you wrote out. I'm going to have you read this paragraph right there, and then when you've had a chance to read that, if you can just look up.
I don't remember the like specifics.
So when I ask you, do you remember any conversations about any potential arguments or anything between Mr. and Mrs. Stermer? Do you recall that conversation with Linda?
I don't recall it.
Had Ms. Stermer ever talked to you prior about any sort of arguments or problems in her marriage?
I don't recall her talking prior about arguments or problems. I remember one time talking about how one of the horses kicked her and he told her to like kind of suck it out. But that's, I think, one of the only.
And that was prior to the fire?
I don't know if it was prior or after. I don't.
You don't know if Linda told you about it
Right.
prior or after? Okay.
Right.
And that particular paragraph, you don't recall then her discussing this with you afterwards?
I don't recall a specific day, her talking to me about that, no.
Do you recall that conversation at all, even if you don't remember what day?
Well, so I think she was put in prison on Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this was yesterday. You would think that she'd be through most of it. I'm not quite sure. Now, the fact that she's wearing civilian wear does kind of indicate to me that she was able to bond out at some point. So
It's very scattered, it's very hard to, it's been so long.
It was a very traumatic incident for you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, still is.
Still affects you today, talking about it?
Yes.
You still remember it?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
oh Lord, it's slowing down.
Good afternoon, Ms. Calhoun. And I know you're having a difficult time, so I'm going to try to be as brief as I can.
He's lying.
Do you recall having an interview with a detective?
Yeah, I mean, I know I had an interview with the detective. I don't know exactly when, like if you asked me if it was what month, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Do you recall the day? I know you recall the day of the fire, the day that you arrived at the Stermer's property and saw Mr. Stermer lying on the ground. Do you recall that day if you gave a statement to?
So, according to Jedi Jess, who looked up her, her stay at the prison, it was more of a method acting drug, if you catch my drift. That being said, she's not fidgety and she's not doing a lot, but she does seem very blank, very, the only way I can put it akin to is when I'm having a really bad pain day and it would seem that I'm under the influence, but I just can't grasp onto a concept. I can't seem to do that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's all I can sort of kind of put it towards is it's even apart from her, let's say addiction struggles. I mean, she basically came onto the scene of her neighbor who she's probably said hi to and that kind of thing, many a times in basically terrible conditions. So I don't know. That being said, I think that this, probably did deeply affect her, but she just looks very bewildered and almost, she just seems to have had a hard time in the intervening years.
To one of the officers on the scene.
I don't recall.
But you do recall getting out of your car, you and Mr. Matheny.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And when you was getting out of your car, you also saw Ms. Stermer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me, if you recall, what her emotional status, in your opinion, was when you saw her?
She was hysterical.
Hysterical.
Yes.
Do you recall if she was crying?
She was more than crying, yes.
Was she screaming?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear her voice screaming before you and Mr. Matheny reached the house?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? When you got out of your car and you approached Mr. Stermer's body, Mr. Matheny called 911. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And did you also have the phone in your hand for a period of time?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And you were screaming for help?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, if you can recall, did you smell any unusual odor on Mr. Stermer?
No.
Do you know what the smell of gasoline smells like?
Yes.
Did you smell any gasoline on Mr. Stermer?
No, I didn't.
Did you smell any gasoline on Miss Stermer?
No.
Said I'll be brief, Your Honor. Could I have just 1 second?
No, you may not. You've taken all of our seconds.
So when you see Todd and you see his condition, are you upset at that point? Did you kneel down beside Mr. Stermer?
Yes.
And how close did you get to him?
I don't know the distance, but I was not far. I mean, from me to the podium, maybe
From me to what?
Maybe from me to here, from my where I'm sitting to maybe here. I was close.
Were you by his face?
Yeah, I checked his. I believe I checked his airway. So yeah.
So you were by his face?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Jury, do you have any questions of her, anyone? I've got a hand going up.
Okay.
Did Mike Matheny call 911?
I don't recall.
Okay. Counsel, any questions in light of that question and answer?
No, Your Honor.
No? Okay. Any other jury questions? No? May she be excused from her subpoena, both sides?
Please be excused, Your Honor.
Okay. And you as well, defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Excusing her? Okay. You're all done. You're excused from your subpoena obligations, okay? Thank you, ma'am.
And then we are going to skip the afternoon break, and then this is going, so I did skip ahead to see who was on the stand today, and it looks to be this same Scott Leroy. So this is the Michigan fire investigator with the Michigan State Police. So I do expect this is where we're going to finally start getting into the meat and potatoes, hopefully, of why they had, thoughts that this might not have been a naturally occurring fire from the very jump. So hopefully we get some answers.
If you want to give me that empty cup, or it may have water in it, but thank you.
My name is Scott Leroy. Leroy is Leroy.
Thank you. Mr. Blair?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, how are you employed?
I am currently retired from the Michigan State Police and work two part-time jobs as a private fire investigator and as a medical examiner investigator.
And when you were employed with the Michigan State Police, what was your role there?
My last role was, from 2001 to 2020, I was a fire investigator stationed here in Paw Paw.
And how long were you with the Michigan State Police for?
31 years.
When did you start there?
I started in 1989.
And as a role as, for instance, starting at the Michigan State Police, did you just start out as a fire investigator?
No, my first 10 years, I was a road trooper at the Ithaca Post. In 2000, I got promoted to uniform sergeant, and I was a supervisory uniform sergeant at the Lakeview Post. Then I transferred down here to Paw Paw in 2001 in the role of a fire investigator.
Fair to say that as your time prior to becoming a fire investigator, you were trained in, basic investigation.
Just because it's Freddie Mercury, but bad Leroy Brown, best damn fire investigator in the whole damn town. And if this man didn't wrestle in college, then I will eat my socks. This man has a singlet somewhere.
Skills, evidence collection, that sort of thing.
Yes,
And then you indicated, what year did you become a fire investigator for the Michigan State Police?
2001.
And prior to becoming a fire investigator in 2001, was there a certain level of coursework that you had to attend or go through?
I had attended, before I got into the Michigan State Police, I attended Lake Superior State University, obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and an associate's degree in fire science. While I was a trooper, I took some courses in the initial fire investigation course and a follow-up, more advanced fire investigation course.
And I assume that before the Michigan State Police allows you to go out and start investigating fires on your own, is there some parameters or qualifications that you have to meet?
At that time, no, I just had to go.
Things that make you go, Was Paw Paw named by a good old boy from the Blue Ridge Mountains that immigrated to Michigan? I think it's actually the name of a fruit. I could be wrong, but I think there's a pawpaw fruit, and isn't it the same? So I think it's the same thing as a jackfruit, but it's called a pawpaw in Michigan. I could be wrong. I don't know what a pawpaw really is other than a grandpa, so I could be telling y'all wrong. Pawpaw, it's the place where all the grandpas go. Oh, and there is a pawpaw in West Virginia. Why am I not shocked, though?
Go through, apply, go through an interview process. Well, in that time, I'm sorry. At that, I was able to transfer in here on the transfer roster.
And as part of your fire investigation training for the Michigan State Police, what coursework did you have to go through? Can you restate that for me, please?
Well, I've gone through, since I've been with the state police, I've gone through a lot of coursework. Started out with what's called Fire Investigation 1, then Fire Investigation 2. I have my CV here to review all the classes if I could, to refresh my memory, or no?
Well, let me ask it this way.
Okay.
Have you provided a copy of your curriculum vitae or CV to the prosecutor's office?
I have.
And yeah, Pro Witness. Let's show you the Marcus People Proposed Exhibit 33, and ask if you recognize that, sir.
This is a copy of my curriculum vitae or CV.
And that's a fair and accurate representation of what you provided to the prosecutor's office.
No. Why was I thinking Freddie Mercury did Leroy Brown? Okay. Now we have to, now I have to look up who sang Leroy Brown, because I always thought it was Freddie Mercury, but I could be wrong. Okay, it was James, never mind, it was James Croix. Why did I think it was Freddie Mercury? I don't know. That being said, why do I think many of the things that I do? Who knows?
Says your curriculum vitae?
Yes.
Move for the admission of 33. All right, so let's, I guess, kind of go through. So basically, to become a fire investigator in the state police, you go through, you said Fire 1 and Fire 2, is that correct?
Correct.
And is there some on-the-job training you have to go through as well?
Eventually, yes.
What is that?
Once I became a fire investigator down here, I would go to scenes with a more senior fire investigator. I did that for about 1 or 2 months.
And then, is there continuing coursework you're required to do when you're at the Michigan State Police?
Not then. There is now.
And have you, even though may not required, did you go through additional coursework?
Yes.
What type of coursework did you do?
There was many different courseworks. I took a class in vehicle fire school, electric and gas appliance fire school, solid fuel burning, which is a fancy way to say fireplaces school, and post-blast school with ATF, taken fire pattern recognition class, residential electricity for fire investigators. That was a class I took, what's called an ATF enclosure, which was another 2-week course at the ATF Fire Research Facility out in.
Okay, but when you're training with the ATF, do you still have to shoot puppies, or do you get to just leave the dogs alone? Asking for a friend who doesn't ever want the ATF to do another thing.
Maryland, spent 2 weeks there. Class in ventilation and flow path and growth. That's ventilation is the fire, the air affecting the fire. And recently a fatal fire investigation class. All those official, I kind of skipped over some of the ones like hazardous materials and things like that.
And like,
Sorry. Dingus walking all over my keyboard. And then, of course, the keyboard decided to, move on things.
Net time, I'm sorry. At that, I was able to transfer in here on the transfer roster.
Okay.
and go through
Work. Then fire investigation 2, if I can.
your CV to the prosecutor's office?
I have.
And yeah, approach witness. I'll show you this Marcus People Proposed Exhibit 33. I'm going to ask you to recognize that, sir.
This is a copy of my curriculum vitae or CV.
And that's a fair and accurate representation of what you provided to the prosecutor's office as your curriculum vitae?
No.
Yes.
All right, so let's,
Dang
and
it.
is there
Dang
some
it.
on-the-job training you have to go through as well?
Down here, that for about 1 or 2, not then. There is now. In vehicle fire school, done post-blast school with ATF, taken fire pattern recognition class, residential electricity for fire investigators. That was a class I took, what's called an ATF enclosure, which was another 2-week course at the ATF Fire Research Facility out in Maryland. Spent 2 weeks there. Class in ventilation and flow path and growth. That's ventilation is the fire, the air affecting the fire. And recently a fatal fire investigation class. All those official, I kind of skipped over some of the ones like hazardous materials and things like that.
And like what agencies offer these types of classes?
Different agencies, the Michigan State Police offered some of them, ATF offered some, the International Association of Arson Investigators, which goes by an acronym IAAI.
And let's talk about IAAI. Do you have any specific certifications as a fire investigator?
I do.
And what are those and who are those through?
I hold 2 national certifications. The first one is a certified fire investigator through the International Association of Arson Investigators. I obtained that in 2006. I also am a member and obtained a certification called Certified Fire and Explosive Investigator. That's with the National
Boy
Association
Scouts.
of Fire Investigators. I obtained that certification in 2019.
Yeah, I just need to strike the last part with respect to anything past 2007. This case is about his expertise level in 2007.
I would disagree. I think he's allowed to give his training experience today, and if that would affect or change his opinion, obviously, then Mr. Miller's feel free to ask him about that. But I think his experience today is just as relevant as it was in 2007.
I agree. I'll overrule the objection.
Now, with respect to, so it sounds to me like you've done a continuing level of coursework throughout your years as a fire investigator, fair?
Yes.
And have you been qualified as an expert in courts before?
Yes.
In what field?
In fire investigation, I've also been an expert in meth lab identification.
And as part of being a fire investigator, is that, we've heard maybe terms called cause and origin. Is that something that you have opined about in courts before?
Yes.
And do you recall how many courts you've been qualified as an expert in?
I've been qualified 47 times in origin and cause investigation, including, I believe, 7 times in this court.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I move to admit Scott Leroy as an expert in fire investigation, cause, and origin.
No objection, Your Honor.
Receive his testimony as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, I'd like to take you back to January 7th of 2007. Do you recall that date?
Yes,
And on that date, were you still working for the Michigan State Police?
I was.
And what role were you working in at that time?
I was a detective sergeant with the Michigan State Police Fire Investigation Unit out of 5th District Headquarters here in Paw Paw.
And we've heard terms thrown about the word fire marshal. Is that you?
That would be a, yes, that's me.
Okay, all right. Just so there's no confusion, when we hear the term fire marshal, are you commonly referred to as a fire marshal?
That's a, there's a small difference, but more, people usually just interchangeably use those two phrases.
And on 1/7
which
of
one of you can
2007, did you
marry?
respond to a residence on County Road 215 in Lawrence Township?
Yes,
Do you know that to be the Stermer residence?
yes.
And how was it you were dispatched on that date?
I was contacted by cell phone at home off duty at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon and informed of the fire.
And did you then respond?
I did.
Do you recall about what time you responded?
I arrived on scene approximately 6 p.m.
And upon arriving on scene, can you describe what you observed? Well, I guess you rephrase that. Upon your initial arrival, what did you observe?
There's obviously a lot of activity going on. Fire department was there. Sheriff's department vehicles were there. I approached there was a lot of commotion going on. It was it was rain/snow going on. I would have contacted whoever was in charge, either the fire chief or the lead law enforcement on scene.
And is this kind of just the process of you beginning your investigation into this fire?
Yes, I would do that just so they know I was there.
And what about the condition of the house at the time you arrived on scene? Can you describe that for the jury, please?
The house was still actively smoking. There were no flames to be seen, but there was a lot of smoke still coming out of the house. There was a fire apparatus parked right in front of the house. I believe it was a ladder truck with hoses still on the ground and active fire suppression going on.
Now, this might kind of go without saying, but I have to ask this anyway. Does the fact that the fire is still going on, does that prevent you from going in and conducting any investigation at this time?
Yes.
Just a little bit.
And at some point in time, did you have the opportunity to view the body of Todd Stermer?
I did.
How was it you came to do that? Can you describe that for the jury, please?
One of the officers on scene directed me to where Todd Stermer was laying. And I went over there and I would document Todd Stermer's body, which is common practice for a fire investigator at a fatal fire scene.
How was it you document that?
I use photographs.
So the evening of the 7th, you took photographs?
Correct.
Do you recall exactly what you would have taken photographs of on the evening of the 7th?
On the evening of the 7th, I took photographs of Todd Stermer. I also took some initial photographs of the structure and some of the surroundings.
You guys are just learning us all the things.
I was going to ask.
Okay, so if anyone has tasted a pawpaw, does it taste like a wheat plum? Because that doesn't sound very good. Never want to eat a bread plum if... That being said, if it tastes good, I'm willing to try it.
That's fine. May I approach the witness? Sir, I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 34-1 through 34-31. Ask if you take a look at those, please.
No, how dare I? Let me move back so I can make you more comfortable, Thor. Loki will do that to bagels or any carb. He'll eat the plastic to get to the French bread inside. Oh, Thor, stop. Sir. Yes, I need to have my laptop or my... keyboard so that I can.
Now, those photographs?
Those are photographs that I took both the evening of the 7th and the next day on the 8th.
Those are fair and accurate representations of the observations you would have made then on the 7th and the 8th of January 2007?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I'd move for the admission of 34-1-3431. May I publish to the jury? Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. How dare I write?
Sir, I'm going to show you, if we can, 34-1. What are we looking at here in this photograph?
This is the front or east side of the structure on the evening of the 7th. And you'll tell evening of the 7th is dark and snowy. The photographs of the 8th are during the daytime.
And do you recall about what time it was you were taking these photographs?
Can do.
It would have been after I got on the scene after 6 p.m. I don't know exactly when.
And contained in this photograph, right here about center where I'm circling with the red blazer pointer, what are we observing there?
There's fire hoses coming from the fire engine, and there's also a red gasoline can.
And does that become relevant here a little later on in your testimony?
It will.
And looking at 34-2,
Not the mic, sir.
This is the rear or west side of the residence. And just to the very far left, you can see the front bumper of a van.
34-3.
That is the van from the previous photograph, or the bumper of the previous photograph.
Now, you're obviously on scene as a fire investigator, correct?
That is correct.
Can you explain why you're taking pictures of a van?
As I'm a fire investigator, but I'm also a detective with the Michigan State Police. So if I see something that may be evidence, I'm going to take note of it, especially in the evening when it's dark. I take a photograph of it because you never can take too many photographs of something. So I noticed this van behind, and I think the next picture will show also what I noticed, so I took some pictures.
Now, I'm going to ask this if I can right now. You've been shown approximately 31 photographs here today, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that the full totality of all the photographs you took?
No,
How many photographs did you end up taking in this case?
it was over 100.
And looking at 34-4,
That is a close-up of the van bumper where I noticed what could be blood.
and 35-5.
Yes, I'm
So
sorry. I'm taking
35-5,
notes.
that is going to be the north side of the house.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Thank you for that. And looking at 34-6,
This is on the north side of the house. Also what appeared to be blood on the ground. And then if you go back to 5, you can see with my photograph just to the lower right, you can see the 2 orange flags that are in the ground.
where I'm circling again with the pointer.
Yes. And those are, and 6 is a close-up of those flags.
And Your Honor, I guess I'm going to kind of warn the court, the next couple of pictures are going to be a little bit graphic of Mr. Stermer, so I don't know how the court wants to proceed with that or give the family an opportunity.
Copies I can look at?
Yes, Mr. Leroy has them right there. Be 7 and 8.
That was classy of the state.
Jury,
you
there's
know.
some graphic photos coming up next, so just alerting you to that, okay? And if there's any members in the audience who want to leave the courtroom while they're on display, I can take a break and let you leave. No one? Okay.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 34-7. What are we looking at here, sir?
That is a photograph of Todd Stermer as I was examining him.
And we are looking at, there are several items in this photograph. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
If, what are we looking at these items, if you're aware, here on the chest of Mr. Stermer?
Specifically the chest, well, I can see there, the 2 larger pads are AED pads, which are used by EMS. And I believe the smaller ones are heart sensors over on the chest and abdomen area.
And there are a multitude of what look like clothing items here. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And do you know how those got there?
Apparently bystander
Or you'll just
EMS
stay here.
and Good Samaritans who arrived on scene first placed blankets and clothing over Mr. Stermer, and I would have removed some of them in order so I could photograph
Or
Mr.
you are
Stermer.
not a baby.
And looking at 34-8,
This is
what are we looking at here?
You just have to get down.
That is Mr. Stermer's feet, and around his feet are a pair of gray sweatpants and a pair of white socks on his feet.
And with respect to those sweatpants, was there anything peculiar about them that you noticed?
When I took other items, the blankets and other items off of Mr. Stermer to photograph them, there was a detectable odor of liquid accelerant in the area from Mr. Stermer, and as I got closer, they seemed to be coming from the sweatpants.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked, if I may approach, Your Honor. People's Exhibit 17. See if you recognize those.
These are the sweatpants that are in a nylon bag with my initials on them.
Those are the ones you then removed from the body of Todd Stermer?
Yes,
And these are the same sweatpants you indicated smelled of liquid accelerant, is that correct?
that's correct.
Who's under it?
It's a clarifying question, Your Honor. Fair. Now, on the 7th of January 2007, did you collect any other evidence?
I did not.
Did you then return to the property?
I did.
On what date was that?
The next day, on January 8th.
And on that date,
my bagel.
what did you do?
On that date, it was concentration on starting my cause and origin investigation of the house.
And how is it you go about doing that, generally speaking?
In general terms, when you do cause and origin investigation, I'm going to examine the house, both exterior and interior, noting burning, things
They're
that aren't
fun.
burned, things that are gone, that have burned up. It's a general examination. You typically do the entire, or you do the, if possible, the entire exterior, and if possible, the entire interior.
Now, when you returned on the 8th, was the scene still secured?
Yes,
How was it secured?
the sheriff's department had left a patrol car on the scene overnight.
Was there also like crime scene tape or anything like that that you recall?
I don't recall if there's crime scene tape.
And was this in the daytime or nighttime hours that you did this?
What's
On the 8th? Do
it was the daytime.
you recall about what time?
It would have been, the exact time, no, I know it had been shortly after 9 a.m. because that's when I was notified of the search warrant.
And as part of your, I think you've talked about a walk around, do you take photographs?
Yes,
And did you do so in this case?
yes.
And looking at the remaining photographs in People's Exhibit 34, do you recognize what those are depicting, just generally?
All these photos are 34, correct?
Yes, those
Oh,
are all
yes.
34, but I'm asking about the remaining.
Yes, yes, those are the next day on the 8th.
And what is the purpose in, part of the purpose in taking these photographs?
To document the scene.
No.
And in this case, just generally speaking, you recall what you took photos of?
I took photos of the house, both exterior and interior.
Now, were you able to make a deep entrance into the interior of the house?
I was able to make entrance into the house on the west side. I tried to make entry into the east side, but that was limited due to the structural collapse that was on the east side of the structure.
I do not know, Average Deb, if for what reason the gas can was on the front lawn, but what I can tell you is now that we've gotten his pictures in, we know that the gas can was there the day before, or at least on the scene after 6 p.m. So that is a really good thing to point out that, now we have corroboration that this was there at least after the time that the fire, investigator came out on the 7th.
Is part of your process also to collect physical evidence?
Yes.
And where do you collect that from, if you can kind of just generally detail that? For instance, inside the residence, outside the residence?
If I see something that is potential evidence, I'm going to collect it, inside or outside.
Fair enough. Have you heard the term excavation before?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
In fire investigation community, excavation means removing
Hopefully.
fire debris from the scene in order to look for evidence or other patterns to help determine where and what could be responsible for the fire.
And did you conduct an excavation in this case?
I did.
And was that captured in your photographs?
Bits and pieces of it were captured. Unfortunately, the scene after I excavated it, I cannot find a photograph of it.
And also as part of an investigation into a fire, do you collect samples?
I can.
And like, describe for the jury what those might entail, if you can, please. What the samples might be, like that you might look for or collect.
If I'm sampling items to look for ignitable liquids, I will typically look for the
Tammy, we aren't going to get any sort of pictures of Todd Stermer. So the only sort of photos that we haven't seen are the ones that he was like, okay, these are graphic photos and these are going to be of Todd. So we did get to see some of the other photos, but any sort of graphic photos we're not going to see. Any that are even borderline law and crime or court TV might not show, just to err on the side of caution, so they don't get, kicked out of the court.
the surface that is in the area of origin to see if there was ignitable liquid in the area of origin, which often includes carpeting, carpet pad, flooring, carpet tack strips, or other parts of a structure that remain behind in the area of origin that may hold traces of a flammable liquid.
All right. And so let's go ahead, if we can, and go back to your photographs. If I look at 34-9, what are we looking at here?
That is the front or east side of the structure.
And 34-10?
That is the south side of the structure.
Now, there is, for lack of better words, we'll call it a rectangle cut along the cement foundation here. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know what that is?
That will be done during fire suppression. If you go back one, you can see the same thing happened on the east side. Below the windows, you can see there is holes cut in the wall. That is standard for a fire department to do that, especially if they can't make entry through normal access, the doorway, or in this case, they couldn't because of the structural collapse.
What is their purpose in cutting those holes in the house?
To get access to the interior to put the fire out.
Spray it with water?
Yes.
And let's go to 34-11. What are we looking at here?
That is the north side of the house.
And there is a large green object depicted here in the photograph. What are we looking at there, if you have any knowledge of that?
That is a fuel oil tank that is filled to typically power a fuel oil furnace.
And 34-12.
This is the rear of the house, or the west side of the house, facing the back.
And 34-13.
This is an aerial photograph. During the scene, I had a fire department aerial truck come to the scene, so I could get above the house and take a photograph from the top down.
So we're kind of talking like a ladder truck type of thing?
Yes.
Okay. With the bucket on the end?
I don't think this one had a bucket, but it was a ladder truck.
Okay. But that allows you to get up high and look down in.
Correct. This is the day before drones.
And 34-14?
This is also from the aerial truck with a house and showing the more of the yard towards the north.
And there are some persons kind of standing here in the photograph. Any idea who those are?
I believe one is the deputy from Berrien County Sheriff's Department who was doing the measuring, and probably more law enforcement officers.
And there were photographs earlier taken of some flags that you saw. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are those also depicted in this photograph?
Let's see if I can. I believe they're down there to the right. There's an orange dot. I don't think that orange dot is it, but the flags are right in that area.
And if you have knowledge, there are some tire tracks contained in this photograph. Is that fair?
Yes.
Do you know what those go to?
Those were to the wrecker that came and took the van the night before.
Looking at 15.
This is another photograph showing to the north.
And as you've previously testified, is that Mr. Galoo's from Berrien?
I believe so.
Okay.
I can't identify him from this photograph.
And 16.
With the ladder truck hasn't moved, so all I've done is turn 180 degrees. That's the shoulder of the firefighter who's behind me, making sure I don't fall, taking a picture back down the driveway back towards the road.
And 17.
17 is a close-up of the rear or west of the house, specifically focusing on the basement door and windows.
18.
This would have been from that basement door, standing right at the door, taking a picture straight in to the structure. So this camera, I'd be facing east, taking a picture of the debris in this area.
Now, without getting into too much detail, there are a few objects contained in this photograph other than debris.
Well, it's all debris, but some identifiable debris. How's that?
Fair. So for instance, my laser pointer, I'm pointing at an object in this part of the photo. Do you recognize that?
Is that the fireplace from the upstairs fireplace?
Where my laser pointer is?
Yes, that's the upstairs fireplace.
Fair. And what do we have right here at the bottom?
That is a section of chimney pipe.
And looking at 19.
That is a close-up of the fireplace for the upstairs.
And well, moving on. Let's look at number 20.
That is a close-up of inside the upstairs fireplace.
And can you kind of explain to the jury why it was you would have taken the photograph up close and at this angle?
This is basically showing that it appears to be a fire in the fireplace, or there's remnants of a fire in the fireplace because of the burnt wood inside.
And that would be this object right here where my
Correct.
laser pointer is?
Correct.
And
I
looking at
know, I
21.
thought it was a TV too.
21 are the sections of chimney pipe that I removed from the inside of the residence during the excavation, and that's where I stacked them.
22.
So 22, this photo, I've now stepped into the basement area through the center door of the basement. I've now rotated to the right 90 degrees. So if you look to the very tight left side of the photograph, that's going to be where the fireplace is. So this view is looking directly south to where there were two bedrooms, a downstairs bedroom and an upstairs bedroom. The floor is burned away. The floor that's separating the first floor and the basement is burned away in this area.
Yes.
You can see there's a window up and down. There should be a floor there to separate the first floor and the basement level.
Typically.
Looking at 23.
So
light
23 is I've now turned 90 degrees back. So if I walked into the basement from the outside, I walked straight forward, and the solid charred wall on the left side, that is adjacent to the basement fireplace. I am documenting the location of the laundry room behind that wall. You can see 2x4 studs going up and down. There was a wall there. So just behind those studs, you can see just the outline of right there is the washer and dryer.
I'm glad you
And we're
had the
looking at
pointer.
24.
24 is I made my way back there and documented the dryer.
And 25.
So I've stepped back in the middle of the downstairs basement, facing east because you can see the fireplaces. But I'm focusing more to the north or left in the area where the fuel oil furnace is located. Before we go to the next photo, you can notice just above the basement fireplace is a large 2x12 piece of structure that is black charred. And I'll show you why that's important in a second, the next photo.
What is this green that we can see here at the top of the photograph?
That is the roof. You're looking at the shingles from on top of the roof, specifically on the north side of the house. As it collapsed inward.
And in 26.
You can see the long charred board that I pointed out earlier that's above the basement fireplace. To the left of that is the remains of the furnace, the metal portion. That's the furnace.
Oh, that's
And
okay.
27.
27 is a close-up of the furnace.
And 28.
28 is back outside in the front, documenting where the 1-gallon gasoline can is located.
And 29,
Is a close-up of the gasoline can that I eventually collected as evidence.
just a moment, Your Honor, I'm sorry. Do you recognize that?
Not with the wrappers.
This is the gasoline can that I collected, and these are my initials on the tape seal.
Does it indicate what time it was you collected it?
It says I collected it at 1:40 p.m.
And that was on the 8th of January?
on the 8th.
Thank you. And just so everyone's clear, this has been a clear, crinkly kind of bag, is that fair?
Yes, that bag is made out of nylon.
Is that important?
Yes.
Why is that?
You cannot put evidence that you're going to have the lab checked for presence of ignitable liquids in a plastic bag. It has to be in either a nylon bag or a metal paint can.
And can you explain why you can't use plastic bags or any other container?
One of the important reasons is when the lab tests these samples, they will put the sample bag and all into an oven to try to heat it up. If you did that with a plastic bag, the plastic bag would melt, and if the plastic bag melts, it can give off petroleum-based products.
So therefore, we can assume that that nylon bag doesn't melt.
The nylon bag does not melt at the temperatures that they're subject to in the lab.
Fair. Now, looking at People's Exhibit 34-30,
This is a shed located to the southwest of the main structure.
and why are you taking a picture of a shed?
I'm documenting that that shed is there and is unburned.
And 31.
I am this is inside that shed, noting that this is an area where fuel cans are stored.
And I may have forgotten to ask this. We talked about you collecting the red gas can that was out in the front yard, correct?
Correct.
Why did you collect that?
At the point I collected it, I did not know if it was evidence but it could be potential evidence because it was found in an area not with the other cans.
And following your documentation with photographs, your inspections, your excavations, so on and so forth, did you also try to collect any samples in this case?
I did not.
Why not?
Because the area identified as the area of origin, the areas that I would have wanted to collect samples were gone. They were burned up. They didn't exist anymore.
And what would that have entailed if you could have collected?
It would have been the first floor. The flooring, any carpeting, any material on the first floor.
But your indication was those were totally consumed?
They are totally consumed, yes. Just as you can see by the earlier photographs from the basement up, there is no floor left.
Okay, well,
And
if you...
following your investigation at the scene, did you then go to another location?
All right, I'm not trying to be special here, but if you couldn't get samples from the area, I know we're probably going to get to it, but then how do you know it's not a natural fire?
On the 8th?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I went to the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department
What was your purpose in going there?
to package evidence that they had collected from the scene the night before, clothing and other material that were on Todd Stermer that night.
Do you recall what those were?
There was blankets, there was a coat, there was some clothes that came from Linda Stermer herself. They were in the evidence room of the Sheriff's Department, and I went in there and packaged them into nylon bags.
And did you collect any other evidence when you were at the Sheriff's Department?
At the Sheriff's Department, they also had metal paint cans that were collected at the autopsy of Todd Stermer. I collected those at that also.
And were you responsible for then transporting those items to the State Police Crime Lab?
I did. I transported all those items to the crime lab in Grand Rapids on January 11th.
Your Honor, can we approach very briefly?
Okay. Oh, they're playing nice with each other now. All right.
Sir, as a fire scene investigator, are you familiar with something called the scientific method?
Yes.
What is that, please?
Scientific method is a basic method that investigation should occur. More of a, not the nuts and bolts, but more of the mental process of doing an investigation.
Fair to say it's the process by which you arrive at your ultimate opinion in a case?
Yes.
And when conducting a fire scene investigation, are there two different conclusions that you must determine?
Yes.
What are those?
The first thing I must determine is the origin of the fire, where the fire starts, and then try to determine the cause or why it started.
Now, with respect to the scientific method, did you follow it in this case?
Yes.
And do you recall what the steps of the scientific method are?
The first two steps are determine a need or define a product, determine a need and find the problem, which is, we almost skip over those because it's always the same two things. There's a fire, and the action that needs to be taken is to determine the origin and cause. The next step is
Fair enough.
to collect data. And data can be anything from observable patterns, witness interviews, lab samples, all the data. The next step is analyze the data. The data that I've collected, observed, I look at it and try to determine what that means. The next step is to develop a hypothesis, a theory. I'm going to develop as many theories that I can initially. All the theory for what I'm doing. If I'm doing the origin, I'm going to develop theories or hypotheses of all the areas where the fire could have started. Then, once I've developed these hypotheses, I'm going to test these hypotheses or theories. And I'm going to use the data. The data I've collected, I'm going to take all the data and see if that data fits in to these theories or hypotheses. And as I go through there, if there is data that doesn't fit a certain hypothesis, then either the data is wrong, or if the data is right, that hypothesis cannot be right. If all the data cannot fit in to that hypothesis. And then at the very end, I take that last hypothesis, that becomes my final hypothesis, and again, I take all the data that's known, look at that hypothesis, and come to the final conclusion.
So with respect to what we've discussed here in court so far, you've gone through the first couple steps because you showed up to a fire scene, correct?
Correct.
As far as data collection, is that what we've also talked about here in court?
Yes.
And that would be your photographs, your scene examinations. Does that include your samples you may or may not have taken from a fire scene? Is that fair?
Yes.
Does that include witness statements as well?
Witness statements are very important.
And does that also include lab reports?
Lab reports are very important.
And in this specific case, did you recall receiving any laboratory reports related to the items you seized from Mr. Stermer or those you collected at the Sheriff's Department?
I did.
What was that, please?
The lab report, and I'm doing this without looking at the lab report myself. So the gray sweatpants that I collected on the 7th indicated positive for gasoline. The gasoline can that I collected tested positive for gasoline. The items that were packaged in the metal paint cans that came from autopsy, which included the left and right socks, the underwear, and a shirt, all tested positive for gasoline. Other items that were collected that I packaged myself in the Sheriff's Department evidence lab would have been the clothes from Linda Stermer, a blue blanket, a white blanket, and there may be another item that I packaged. Those items did not show the presence of ignitable liquid.
And if Mr. Ernst has already testified here in court about his findings, we would rely upon those exact findings. Is that fair?
Yes.
But you specifically recall the sweatpants, socks, and underwear of Mr. Stermer being positive for gasoline.
And the shirt.
And in addition to that, we talked about witness statements. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you made aware, did you have an opportunity to review the statements of Linda Stermer?
I have.
What do you recall those being?
The witness statements from Linda Stermer as relates, and I was specifically looking as it relates to the fire. They're pretty consistent that she was in the basement doing laundry when she heard Todd Stermer scream. She goes up the stairs and looks into the living room, on the main floor living room. She sees the chair, the recliner chair, on fire, and Todd on fire across the room towards the bedroom with a line of fire between the chair and Todd.
Thank you. Now, I may have gotten a little bit ahead of myself there, so I'm going to take a little step back. Let's talk about the area of origin if we can.
Okay.
Did you develop various hypotheses as far as what the area of origin may have been in the Stermer house?
The pretty standard, when I look at a house fire, the original hypothesis is the whole house. I look at the whole house as the fire starts here, and then through a process of elimination, I start examining each area and then decide if this is or if there's or is not the area of origin. Often, when you start out, it's pretty easy, as you start, that's the key word, when you start, it's pretty easy to look at a room where there's no fire damage and say, fire didn't start here, so you cross it off and you start moving closer. And typically you're moving from the least fire damage to the most fire damage, with the most fire damage typically being where the fire starts.
So for instance, in this particular case, do you recall what your hypotheses were as far as the area of origin?
So the hypotheses for the area of origin, I broke down as east side of the structure, the south side of the structure, the basement, the living room, and the north side, which is going to be the kitchen dining room area.
All right, if we can work through those. Are those depicted in the photographs you have there in front of you?
Yes.
And if you can, let's start with the south side of the home. I think that was one of your hypotheses, is that correct?
That is one, yes.
What photograph would be a good representation of that? Well, actually, strike that. Let me strike that. I apologize. Where would you have started?
I would have started at the front.
Let's go with that. What photograph would be best to start there then?
The front is 9. And we will probably go between 9 and 13.
Ooh, on top of it, between
All right,
9 and
looking
13
at-
for the front.
34-9. This is the front of the house, correct?
Correct.
What about, what considerations are you looking for in this photograph?
So in this photograph, I'm trying to look at fire spread.
Good job,
What
Snurr.
did the fire do on this side or this exterior wall? So I look at the door, I look at the 2 windows. There's some minor sooting above the windows, but there's really no fire damage of significance to talk about. So that's telling me the fire didn't come out those windows. And if the fire would have started there, I would have expected that the fire to start to the east side. Now, as I'm doing this, also the thought process is comparative. So I'm going to compare the east room to the west room. Which one has worse fire damage? And because that changes scene to scene depending on the size and intensity of the fire. So for this case, that little bit of smoke coming out of that, it's going to be the left or south window, is pretty minor compared to the rest of the structure. Now, if we can skip to picture 13. So this is the aerial. At the bottom of the photograph, you can see a small roof, which is
I thought it
the
was
roof over the
funny.
porch. And you can see it's still there. It's not burned. But more importantly, if you look just beyond the porch, you can see a wall section and a window. And again, there's no fire damage or no fire coming out of that window. So that's telling me, compared to the rest of the house, there isn't as much fire damage. Now, in a situation like this, it's very important to distinguish between fire damage and collapse damage. So we're going to see a lot of collapse damage. Roofs collapsed, the floors collapsed, but collapse damage is different than fire damage. So the fire is going to start, and that's going to cause the collapse. But you can see in this photo, the window where the wall is, it's a large section. It's collapsed, but it's still there. It's not burned. It's not burned away. We look directly to the right, which is going to be the northeast corner of the house. We can also see large sections, and underneath the snow is actually sections of the roof. The roof is collapsed in. So there's still a lot of unburned material there. I also looked in those windows and those holes. I told you I really couldn't get in to the east side, but I did stick my head in and take photographs inside, like those holes the fire department cut. I stuck my head in there and looked and determined the fire damage there was drastically less than the west side of the house. So with that, I was able to eliminate we're gonna call the east, the northeast quadrant as the area of origin.
Now, and shame on me for failing to ask this, is there like a process by which a fire kind of progresses and spreads?
Yes, but that's a easy question that can lead to many complicated answers. Fire spread can be determined by fuel source, by ventilation, by location. So that's like a simplistic question where it can be very complicated as information comes forward.
Is there a way that a fire consumes a piece of fuel? For instance, well, strike that. We'll get to that later. With respect to collapse damage, you talked about that. What causes collapse damage?
Well, in my line of work, I'm not a structural engineer. So when I see collapse damage, it is a result of the fire. But the collapse is from the fire burning away structural members, floor, center beam of the rafters. You see a lot of roof collapse because it burns away the peak where the trusses are, and then that makes the roof collapse. Or floor beams. Floor beams will be consumed, and that'll make the floor above them collapse.
Thank you. Now, when it comes to, so we just talked about, I think you said the northeast quadrant of the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that you were able to eliminate that as the area of origin?
Correct.
Where is the next place you would progress to?
I would progress to the south side.
South side?
The south side.
Okay.
So the south side, we can
South side.
specifically see the roof is still there. It's still up. Let's switch over to photo 10. Don't worry, we'll go back to 13.
Excuse me?
10.
10? Oops, went too far. There we go.
So 10 is the south side of the structure. Again, I'm looking at the windows. There is fire coming out of the windows, more of the first floor than the basement. If you look at the basement windows, there's not even sooting on those windows. You look at the first floor windows, you can see there is some smoke, some light fire that melted the vinyl siding. And above that is going to be the attic space. And you can see where the fires burned through the attic space. This is telling me there's not a lot of fire in those rooms on the other side of those windows because the fire is not trying to vent out those windows. Vent is a fire department, both a firefighting and a fire investigation term, is where the fire is trying to get more oxygen to burn. You know, the fire, most of us know that a fire needs oxygen to burn. And that's how come if you throw a big pile of leaves on top of a campfire, it doesn't really do anything because the leaves smother the oxygen away. So now let's go back to 13 again. So 13, we can see the roof is still there. The roof hasn't collapsed. It didn't burn away. The only area is on the west side of the center line. Prosecutor Blair, if you could just zoom the area where that small burn area.
In this area here?
That area right there, yes.
Certainly.
Yes. So out of that roof section, this is the area of this section that is burned away. So I've noticed that this section is directly across from the living room versus the section on the other, and the center is the ridge line. The section to the south, or excuse me, to the east or to the bottom of the photograph, that is on the other side of the ridge line. That is significant because when fire gets into an attic space, regardless where, it's going to go to the peak. If you start a fire anywhere in the attic space, it's going to hit the roof section, it's going to hit the roof deck, and it's going to go up to the peak. And as it does that, it's going to start burning there. So we're going to have fire damage from where it enters the attic space going to the peak. So in this case, the fire is entering the attic on the west side of the peak. And you can see right at the very bottom, you can see the outline of the living room fireplace.
That'd be in this area here?
Yes, that's the living room fireplace. That, at this point, that is just for reference purposes.
Thank you.
So that helps me eliminate that. Now, remember the other photo from the inside. We're still talking about the south section. Let's look at photo 22.
Minutes or so. So whenever you can find a good spot between now and 5 minutes.
This is probably a good spot right now,
Okay.
actually, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Rather than
right.
jump into another photograph.
Okay, thank you. So jury, I'm going to send you home, and the broken record in me.
Okay, so now we are on to, we can go back and live. I know we have a live somewhere. Aha. Ooh, they must be on lunch. Well, wait, before we do that, I want to kind of see where the guilty, not guilty is going. Now, at this point, the state hasn't proven enough for me to push guilty. So it looks like for court TV, 74% say that Linda is going to be guilty, 14% say not guilty, and 11% say hung jury. So there you go. And now we are on to day 5. 0.25.
On the record, in the case of People versus Linda Stermer, all are present except for the jury. Any matters to address before we bring them in?
Yes, Your Honor.
Me.
Well, I spoke too soon. I was like, let's get ready to rumble. I think that the blazer's too structured. I think then she looks kind of like she's a lawyer in her own trial. That being said, it's not terrible. I just don't... First of all, I would never buy anything white because I am a stain master, so I would stain something.
Also, before we bring in the jury, the record should reflect that we do have 15 jurors here, 3 to be excused when the time comes, because of some confusion between the court rule and statute on the number of alternates allowed and whether there's a 14 cap. There's also the case of People versus Missouri, 100 Mishap 310, a 1980 case. But in any event, parties all agreed that 3 alternates would be appropriate due to the length of the trial. Is that a correct statement?
That is an accurate, correct statement, Your Honor.
Agreed? Okay, thank you. We will bring in the jury.
To be fair, Chucky, you're probably right. Bring in the jury. Okay, honest to God, how pissed off are you going to be if you're one of the 3 alternates who had to sit in for lawyer, hops along slow? I mean, I would be pissed if I was an alternate and I had to sit through all of the slow defense attorneys, rambling questions only to get dismissed before deliberation. Oh, I'd be all sorts of feeling some kind of way about that. Oh, she does kind of remind me of Calgon, Take Me Away.
Everyone, welcome back. Ms. Siderview? Or Mr. Blair, I'm sorry. Sir, you can come on.
We're easily confused.
Yes. As I've said before, you look so much alike.
Yes, easily confused. We will recall Scott Leroy in the witness stand.
So I'll swear you in again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And microphone near your mouth so the jury can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Leroy, let's go ahead and, if we can, kind of recap yesterday, just summarize very briefly. We were talking about determining the area of origin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we were going through your various hypotheses as to what may have been the area of origin of the Stermer residence. Is that also correct?
Yes.
And we had already disproved, it sounds like, 2 of your hypotheses as far as areas of origin from yesterday. Do you recall that?
Just object. Waive it.
I didn't use the word disprove, I eliminated.
Eliminate, fair.
Yes. Or I was still working on, I eliminated the east section of the house and we were still discussing the south section.
Very good. And my memory serves correct, it looks like we were on People's Exhibit 34-13. I'll hand you those exhibits. Yes.
And
Yeah, I think I
welcome,
admitted it yesterday
Detonator.
Afternoon, like first thing. And looking at 34-13, is that the photograph that's up on the screen?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And is that your recollection where we may have left off yesterday?
Yes, we left off there yesterday. I was discussing the remains of the southern section of roof section. And I'd drawn your attention to a small area burning in the roof just to the west, or as we look at the photograph, the top portion of the ridge line of the roof. And I just suggested we switch to an interior view of the south section, which is going to be photo 22.
Before we go to 22, I did kind of neglect to ask this question of you. When you're evaluating burn damage, what are we looking for there?
Well, as I evaluate burn damage, on the basics, I'm trying to find out how bad something is burned. And understanding the part that's burned the worst is the part that's gone. So, for instance, if we're at a campfire in the backyard, and you put a log on the fire, and it burns, and it gets late, you go in, come out the next morning, and there's still remnants of the log left. The part of the log that's the furthest away from the fire has, sometimes not even burned, but it has the least amount of char. And as you look down the log towards where the fire was, it gets smaller, because that is what we refer to as mass loss. Mass of the log has been consumed away, so there's mass loss. So that's one of the things we're looking for. If there's mass loss, that means this may have been closer to the fire. And then when you get down closer to where the fire was, there's nothing left. That's also a term of mass loss. So as I'm evaluating burn damage, that is one of the things I'm looking for, is the mass loss of material, or we'll also use the word fuel. And when
Okay, how does that relate to mass holes? Because mass loss sounds like something that happens when you have mass holes. Science.
a fire investigator uses the word fuel, don't confuse that with like fuel for your vehicle or anything. We're talking about anything that burns. Wood, paper, plastics, anything else that can burn, we consider fuel for the fire. So that's,
Okey-dokey.
well, that's a generalization of when I'm looking at burn damage, what I'm doing. I'm trying to evaluate that burn damage to similar structures in that burn damage. The higher, the longer the burn, the more burn damage typically means that burned longer and it is closer to where the fire started.
Now, do you also evaluate burn damage on, say, things that are not part of the house, like a person?
Yes, it's one of the reasons I looked at Todd Stermer tonight is to look at the burns on him. The burns on everything, furniture, the structure, and victims are part of the burn damage that need to be evaluated.
Ooh.
So now we're going to turn our attention, I believe you said, to picture number 22, is that correct?
That's
See, detonator bringing like the science, and I just used it to make a joke about the Karen Reed case. But you learn important things, both, you know, jokes to make at the Karen Reed case and all about fires over here on the Petty Express.
That's correct.
And what are we looking at here again?
So this photograph, I was standing in the central portion of the basement, looking towards the south. So in the previous overhead shot, the area where the roof was
I know,
still
over here
intact.
showing you smartness.
This is the rooms directly underneath it. So this is going to be the rooms in the southwest quadrant of the structure. I'm looking for the fire damage in these two areas. One of the things to notice is the amount of debris on the floor of the second floor. Obviously,
Is that the area I'm pointing to here?
correct.
Okay.
Oh,
Obviously,
well,
the
I was like,
floor
there's no
between the first floor
floor.
and the basement is gone. But you can see there's still wood or wall structure that's unburned, especially if you look at the photo, the top left of the photo, you can see a wall section that is unburned. And you can see a large amount of debris that the prosecutor pointed to earlier on the floor. Now, this debris would be a accumulation from both floors. Actually, the debris you're looking at on the top, that likely came from the first floor when the floor burned away and it collapsed down. The significance there is the amount of debris in this area is more solid than the area to the center. So what I'm saying is there's less mass loss of the fuel in this area than the center area. That determination helped me eliminate the south side of the structure as an area of origin.
And is the fact that the roof still appears to be intact in that area relevant? I'm not sure if we talked about that.
Yes, it is. That's part of the overall mass and the burn area of the south side.
So at that point in time, then, you were able to eliminate that particular area of the house, is that correct?
The south section, yes.
South section. What section did you move on to next?
Next, let's go back to photo 13.
Certainly.
I know.
So I've eliminated the east section and the south section, so that leaves what I'm referring to as the center section and the quadrant in the northwest section.
Hey, he knows
The
what he's
northwest section,
doing.
by evaluating it, obviously there's collapse damage. There is significant burn damage here, but by looking at it, I'm comparing the amount of mass of the fuel that's left, the amount of structure that's burned or unburned, and there is significantly more on the north side of unburned area.
Okay,
You can
so
also see
towards
kind
the
of
front.
in the middle between the north area and the center, there's studs. In this picture, they're actually
Yes.
kind of horizontal, but that's the picture of a wall that's collapsed down. But those studs are still intact, which denoted
Ooh,
a wall
intact
section
studs.
between, or a wall section,
need
there's a
for
wall
a
section
stud
between
finder.
the north part and the central part.
Just so the record's clear, we're talking about the area in the kind of upper right part of the photo here where I'm circling with my pointer?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so at this point in time, were you able to eliminate that area, or is there additional evidence you need to consider?
So at that point, I eliminated that area, the northern area, as an area of origin. So now I'm concentrating on the center section. The center section has two floors, the main floor and the basement. Well, I can see this photo. You can see this photo. You can see at the top of the photo, there's the exterior wall that appears to have remnants of bay windows that would
That area here, sir?
yes, that you would expect to see with a cathedral ceiling. So I'm going to examine this area. Now I want to determine if it's the first floor or the basement where the fire starts. So,
Well, I mean, I'm going to go ahead on a limb here and say the first floor says it's not there anymore.
so if we can pull up photo 12.
12? Easy.
So we're examining the west side or back side of the structure from the exterior. Important things to notice is, now I've already eliminated those sections, so I'm kind of concentrating on the center portion. I'm looking at the fire damage that's coming out of the windows. So where is the fire from inside the house first and longest coming out of the house? We look to the large bow windows. We can see there's heavy charring all around those window sections. We've already seen that the roof in this area is consumed away.
And we're talking, just so I'm clear, this area here, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is
Now,
a bay window.
If you look to the right, we're still talking the main floor, the area that I previously eliminated, but you can see that there's fire coming out of that window, and you can see the black and kind of comes out in kind of a cone shape out of the window as the fire does. Now let's compare those two areas, the burn damage there, to the windows on the basement level.
That would be these windows down in this area here.
Correct. So notice the amount of fire, or specifically lack of fire, coming out of those windows. Let's go to photo 17.
17?
Yes. So this is the close-up of the door leading into the basement.
Oh, he's sweating like
We
me
talked
in
about how
church.
heavy the fire is to the windows above, but this basement window, there is no fire coming out of that door. And the two windows on the side, the one to the left doesn't have any smoke or fire coming out of it. The one to the right has some smoke and probably a little bit of heat coming out of it. But comparatively to those other windows, and especially the windows above, dramatically less. The reason for this is, or let me say it a different way. If, as I'm thinking about area of origin, if I think, what would this look like if this fire started in the basement? If that fire had started in the basement in this center section, what would that fire do? It would eventually go up to the ceiling, which is going to be the floor of the first floor, and from there, it's going to start spreading to other areas of the basement, including venting out those windows. Now, if it goes long enough, it will eventually burn through the floor, and then it will go up.
He does look like
into
he's
the
about to
living
go to sleep.
But before that happens, it's going to burn and spread through the basement. Let's look at it the other way around. If the fire starts on the first floor, where's that fire going to go? The fire's going to want to go up. So as it goes up and it starts spreading on that main floor, it's going to spread, eventually go through the windows, and then it will start attacking the roof. At some point, the roof, in this case, burned, collapsed, and when it collapsed, it came down, when it came down, and then it started burning away the floor. At some point in this incident, the floor burned away, and then all of that debris on the first floor now dropped into the basement. But since the roof was already burned away, the fire will go straight up instead of going sideways. It's sort of like if you're outside and you have a burn barrel, and you have all kinds of holes in the side of the burn barrel. When you light something on fire in that burn barrel, the fire doesn't come out the holes in the side because it can go straight up and out. So that's kind of an analogy for what's going on here. Because the roof is already burned away,
He would use like the hill chuck, not like a new burn pile, but like you are using the rusted and holy vintage one.
the fire that's now in the house can go straight up and not out those windows.
Yes, it would be great.
So,
Fire
given-
Marshal Bill.
That information, I've now narrowed my area of origin to the main floor living room in the central part of the house, central west part of the house.
And if we flip back to People's Exhibit 13, oops, wrong one. That would be this area right here where I'm circling with my pointer, is that correct?
Yes, if you could you zoom in to that area real quick?
Yes.
So the boundaries of that room, you can see towards the bottom of the photograph, there's a wall section that is above the fireplace. So that would be the eastern wall of the living room. On the left side where that roof is, that would be the boundary for the south side of the living room. You can see the exterior is the boundary to the west side of the living room. And where you see that wall collapsed, that would be the boundary for the north side of the living room. So in that area that we're looking at right now, on the main floor, is the area of origin. This is what I determined to be the area of origin.
So you determined the area of origin to be the living room of the Stermer residence?
Correct.
Okie dokie.
And in determining the area of origin, at the time you determined this originally, did you have information about the statements of what Linda Stermer had stated to either Mr. Shinsky or other investigators?
Not at this point, no.
And had you received any information about the gasoline present on Mr. Stermer's sweatpants, if you recall?
I had not received I hadn't even taken the sweatpants to the lab at this point.
Okay.
Because this was all done on the January 8th.
And I think we've already touched on this a little bit. The next finding you need to make is basically the cause of the fire. Is that fair?
Correct.
And how is it you go about doing that?
To determine the cause, I say cause, what started the fire? What was the ignition source of the fire is trying to determine the cause of the fire. It's one of the kind of the same process, the scientific method as we did with origin. I'm looking in the area of origin, and I'm figuring
Okay.
what is there that can start a fire. Now, I'm breaking this down into origin and cause and section, but as the two in real life kind of happens simultaneously. As I'm looking through the house, I'm taking notice. As I'm looking for the area of origin, I'm obviously taking notice of items that may be a cause of the fire or need to be considered a cause of the fire. We kind of break it down, one for analysis purposes, one or the other, but really it almost happens at the same time as you're walking around.
Okie dokie.
So in the area of origin, things I considered at what could start the fire: the fireplaces, an associated chimney, considered smoking, electrical, the furnace, the laundry machines. And I also considered an intentionally set fire as a possible fire cause.
Arson
So
being
then
our
I start
6.
examining those to see if I can eliminate them from the scenario.
Are you familiar with the term ignition source?
Yes.
What is that?
Ignition source is something that generates enough heat to ignite or catch fire a piece of fuel.
And are you familiar with the term first fuel ignited?
The term is pretty self-explanatory. The ignition source comes into the fuel that is first ignited or first caught on fire.
Fair enough. Let's, if we can, then work through your hypotheses as to what may have caused the fire at the Stermer residence, if we can. What was the first hypotheses you would have tested against the data you collected?
The first one I would have looked at is the laundry machines. We had one photo of, a couple photos actually. If we go to photo 23.
Certainly.
It'd be really odd for the fire to start with the laundry machines, considering Linda was right down there. But I get that you have to check.
23.
Okay.
So when we introduced this photo yesterday, I mentioned you could directly in the middle of the photograph, on the other side of those 2x4s is a white vertical. That is the side of one of the laundry machines. And we don't need to go to it, but we also show a photo of the dryer. Those can be eliminated as a fire cause because they're not in the area of origin. They're on the other side of that 2x4 wall, and there is, if one of the mental exercises a fire investigator goes through when he looks at an area of an ignition source, excuse me, is you look at that and say, okay, if this started the fire, what would this fire look like? If the fire starts in one of those laundry machines or at one of those laundry machines, it's going to spread from the laundry room, going to go up, it's going to spread outward. Well, as it does that, it's going to start consuming fuel, the structure of the house. Well, in this case, in order for that amount of fire damage to occur in the living room, the fire from the laundry room would have had to burn through that wall or up the stairs. Well, there's still significant mass left of that wall. As a matter of fact, if you look at those studs, 2x4s, they're not even smoked. The typical reason those aren't even smoked in this case is because they had drywall on them. If you can see that center 2x4 towards the bottom, you can see a little, right there, you can see a strip that's kind of greenish and white. That's leftover drywall or gypsum board. So that was on that wall, and drywall serves as a fire barrier. And so that would have kept the fire from the laundry room into the living room. The reason it's gone now is during fire suppression, that drywall gets crumbly in the fire, and then when it's hit with a high-pressure water hose, then it falls off. So with that, I can eliminate laundry machines as the cause of the fire. I also considered the furnace. Let's look at photo 26.
26?
Yes. This is right in the center of the photograph. You can see the sheet metal. That is the furnace. Again, notice the amount of structural material that's still there compared to the living room. And go to photo 27. That is a closer view of the furnace. Now, the furnace is damaged because the upper stories collapsed on top of it, so there was damage. I examined the fuel lines, didn't find any significant leak in the fuel lines that I could see visually or I could test, and there was structural damage, or the structural damage around the furnace was less than the area of origin in the living room. So with that, I was able to eliminate the furnace as a cause of the fire.
What would be another possible hypothesis you would consider as to the cause of this fire?
One of the hypotheses was smoking, but I learned that there was no smoker, or that no one smoked cigarettes in the Stermer household. I think occasionally, I was said that Todd would occasionally smoke a pipe, but no one smoked cigarettes in the home.
And did you receive any indication that anyone was smoking in the house that day?
I did not.
And what else did you consider as a possible hypothesis for the cause of the fire?
I considered electrical cause. Well, let me back up. I considered an electrical cause. Electrical cause is a little more difficult because a lot of the electrical components are missing, which is not uncommon when you're doing a fire investigation, especially one of this magnitude, that sometimes the electrical components just are gone. So you have to consider how the fire burned, the fire dynamics. And you have to consider where the electrical is located. Electrical is located typically in the walls or the ceiling. So if the electrical system malfunctioned or failed, that fire is going to be in the wall. And electrical fires start small. So if you think about if you have something plugged into an outlet and that starts sparking and catches on fire, well, that fire is going to start small and it's going to slowly grow. It's not going to be a large, expansive fire at the onset. It's going to slowly grow. The indication, number one, we noticed a lot of the walls are still in place. Right? When we looked at the photographs for the southern bedrooms, we had that one wall that was still there. We still had
Yes.
significant wall structure on I'm talking about studs. The studs are left on the north side. So if an electrical fire would start in those walls, we wouldn't see those studs because they would have to, same thing. The fire would have to burn out, get rid of those studs before it could get into the living room and burn up to the roof. And the origin is not coming from any of the wall areas. It's coming more from the living space of the living room, on the first floor living room. So given the fire dynamics, the way the fire reacted, and the lack of initial damage to the walls, I eliminated electrical cause at that point.
Now, you mentioned an electrical fire is kind of a fire that starts small. Is that what you elaborated on here?
Correct.
And is that if you can opine on this, a fast developing fire or a kind of a smoldering, slow developing fire?
The development of the fire would all depend on the fuel load around it. The electrical short or the electrical fire starts small, but if that electrical fire happened to have been surrounded by styrofoam, it's going to burn faster than if it was just touching wood. So that varies.
Would there be smoke?
There would be smoke.
And to your understanding, how many people were in the Stermer residence on January 7th, 2007?
I was told on both 7th and the 8th that there was 2 people in the residence, Todd Stermer and Linda Stermer.
And is the fact that there are 2, and this fire occurred about what time, if you recall?
3:30 in the afternoon or 2:30? I'd have to look at a report to get the exact time, but it was in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. And typical hours when people would be awake?
Correct.
And does that factor into this decision at all, that there were 2 persons in the home that would likely be awake?
Yes, I was given initial information from the Van Buren County detectives who did some initial interviews on the 7th that there were 2 people. Linda and Todd were in the house at the time of the fire, and they were both awake. Todd may have been taking a nap, but Linda was awake. These were some initial statements that the Sheriff's Department relayed to me.
So I guess to kind of get to the bottom of my question here, and to your knowledge, were either of the Stermers disabled or invalid of any kind?
Not that I'm aware of.
In fires you've investigated before, does that play a role in that, when there's a fatality or something sometimes?
Yes, it does.
How so?
I've done fatal fires before where people were bed-bound or wheelchair-bound. I think one of the fires, the person was wheelchair-bound, and the fire started in their lap from smoking, and because they're wheelchair-bound, they're by themselves, they couldn't escape. Same thing, I've had people who are bedridden, fire starts, and they're unable to escape because they physically can't move. Also, occasionally, I've had it where people are known to be intoxicated and in bed, and this can also impair their ability to escape or to self-rescue themselves from a fire.
Would you agree with the premise then that the likelihood that a person is awake and not invalid, for lack of better words, would increase the chance that they may notice a small fire or a fire starting slowly? Don't think so at all. I think it's hypo.
Overrule that, I don't think it's legal.
Yes, I would take that in consideration, the general condition of a person and how quickly they discovered the fire or they could take action about the fire, both mental and physical state,
I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but does smoke have a smell to it?
typically.
Do electrical fires have a certain smell to them?
They do, and sometimes they're associated with sound,
What kind of sound?
like an arcing sound. Not everyone. Electrical fires is kind of a broad category, and I got to be very careful to try to lump one generalization to all electrical fires.
Okay.
And when you describe an arcing sound, is that like an electrical current kind of sound? Like the sound of a...
If you take two wires and you touch them together, and it's going to go, you can hear the zap pop, and usually if you're holding the wires, you usually jump.
Fair, thank you. Just want to make sure everyone understood that in case people haven't played with electricity. What was the next, so at that point in time, I guess, were you able to eliminate electrical?
I eliminated electrical as a fire cause at that point.
What was the next hypothesis you would have tested in this case?
I examined and considered the fireplace for an hypothesis. On the day of my exam on the 8th, I believe I was aware that there could have been a fire in the upstairs fireplace from the information that was passed to me by the Sheriff's Department detectives.
If I can stop you right there, when we say upstairs, we're talking about the main floor of the house, is that correct? Okay.
There's basement and the main floor, and if I misspeak, I say main floor, first floor, I'm meaning the main floor where the living room is.
Very good.
So I started examining the fireplaces. Let's look at photo 19.
Okay.
Is that photo 19 on the screen?
This is photo 19. This is the main floor fireplace. Before I talk about this, I just want to go to photo 20 real quick. Yes, that's photo 20. I documented what was inside the fireplace, and there is burnt wood in the fireplace. So that tells me there may have been a fire. And obviously, is it possible that fire debris during the collapse got in there? It's possible, but unlikely, because the collapse is going to come straight down versus jump sideways. This is likely it's probable that there was a fire in that main floor fireplace. Now we can go back to 19. So I'm examining the fireplace. To understand the construction of this fireplace, this is a modern fireplace versus I'll call it an old-time hand-built fireplace. Old-time hand-built fireplace, the kind you'll find in the nice farmhouses that are 150 years old. They were built piece by piece with stone or brick, made the firebox where the fire actually was built. There was a brick or clay liner in the chimney that went up to carry the smoke out. Typical modern fireplaces are a contained steel box, and that's what you're looking at there. And out of the top of the steel box is a steel round chimney pipe. Sometimes it's referred to as a vent or a flue, and that is the round chimney pipe that's connected to that firebox, the steel firebox, and then it runs up, eventually out through the roof. Then what's the important part for that? That is the actual fireplace construction. Typically then, people build walls around it because nobody wants to look at the ugly backside of a metal fireplace or the chimney. So they'll build walls around it. And sometimes you'll see they'll actually put like brick or stone on these walls, but that's just for decoration. The walls themselves are typically built of wood. And I refer to that as the chimney chase. So that's the area, area inside or around the fire, the chimney, the metal chimney, that's separating that chimney from the rest of the living portion of the house, is this chase. And it's typically built with wood. It may be drywalled. Sometimes they'll have OSB on there. It varies on construction, but that's a chimney chase.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
If there is, so I'm considering ignition sources from the fireplace. Did the chimney malfunction? Was there a chimney fire? If the chimney malfunctions, I've seen it where holes have developed in chimney pipe. So now the hot gases from the smoke that go up the chimney can escape the chimney itself and get into this chase area. Now this chase area is built with, especially in this case, you can see it's built with wooden structural members. So that those wooden structural members have some sort of sheeting on the outside. Could be OSB, could be drywall. That's going to contain, just like we talked about earlier with the laundry machines. If that hot smoke or gases are in that chase, that's going to contain that hot gases and eventual fire.
No, actually, I was setting up the stream for after this. I'm going to try something new, and we are going to pick this, or basically, I'm going to end this stream, and then since it's the day before Friday, and usually the young ferals do not have homework, I am going to do another good chunk in the afternoon instead of the evening tonight, because it seems like Mr. Mo, we need to talk about work stuff, or for him. So that way I can still get a couple more hours of day 5 done, but it's just getting you guys clicked over to redirect to that stream. Now, you won't be able to redirect on Rumble because, you have to end a stream on Rumble before you can start a new stream, so I'll have to go and spread up all of that. It's the trunkening, yes. And no worries, Tammy. I do think that is going to be a point that the state, I think, is going to make in closing argument, that Linda had time, before the other neighbors came over, that should she have, poured gasoline on Todd, that she could have gotten into all new clothes. Now, I don't know how likely that is, but that could be a possibility.
For a while, inside that chase. The fire inside that chase is going to go up, typically burn out the roof at the top of the chase, and then it's going to eventually spread outward. And as it spreads outward, it's going to consume the fuel or the wooden structural material that make up that chase to proceed. And typically that'll always happen at the top versus the bottom, depending on where the hot gases from the chimney collect the most and longest for the fire to start. Excuse me. You can see here
Thank
on
you.
photo 19, this is the upstairs fireplace again, and you can see the remnants of the wall that was built around it. This wall would have been part of the chimney chase, where the metal chimney would have gone behind it. You can see there's 3 2x4 studs still in place and intact to the right. There's one directly above that is broken up to the left. That's broken off, but in your mind's eye, you can straighten it up and you can see where would be. And there's one that's missing directly above it, of the fireplace. There's an area where there should have been one. If you know what you're looking for, right at the bottom, you can see the stub where the nails were, right there, yeah. There was one. Now, obviously, remember, we've had a lot of fire in here and structural collapse. And we've also have that 2x6 that runs horizontally right across the top of the fireplace. That still has clean wood and burned. So like I mentioned before, that likely had drywall on it up until the fire hoses hit it and knocked it off. So looking at the damage profile, specifically the lack of damage there, that's significant in considering this as a chimney fire or a fireplace fire. Additionally, if we look at photo 21, This is the chimney pipe that I collected from inside the structure. Later, yesterday we talked about excavating. Later, I would excavate then it would be the basement floor, but had the debris from both the basement, main floor, and the roof directly above in this area. This chimney pipe was located. I moved it out and I put it here. I examined it and nothing extraordinary came to my attention. Obviously, if you look at it, it's bent, it's burned, but remember there was a whole house burning on top of it at one point. So, and the collapse happened.
Fair
That's going
point.
to disform the metal, disform the pipe, and it was under burning roof sections for a while. So there is fire damage. But what I discovered is there was nothing obvious to me that would indicate there was something wrong with that chimney. And that also states for the fireplace itself. I didn't find anything obvious with the metal fireplace box that would show that it malfunctioned or there was something wrong with it. And that backs up with the lack of burning of the wooden stud members around it. At that point, I could eliminate the fireplace and chimney as a potential ignition source.
If I can back up then to number 19, I guess, and maybe I missed this, but can you explain why it is you would expect this stud right here to be burned?
If the fireplace was the start of the fire is going to be directly above the fire. I'm sorry, I'm doing that again. Is going to be directly above the fireplace, and that's going to be one of the first structural members that are going to burn.
And so I guess just by the dynamic, would we expect then, as it burns to the roof, hot material to be falling down on top of the fireplace? Or what are we?
It depends if we're talking about the fires in the chase or outside the chase.
Inside the chase.
If it's inside the chase, the fire's going to go up inside the chase. If it burns the roof section, that'll eventually burn and fall down into and sit on top of the fireplace itself. I've seen fires in new houses before where the cellulose insulation will fall in. And on top of that firebox, it start the fire on top of that box, of the firebox. But the fire is inside the chase, sitting on top of that metal firebox, not in the place where the fire is supposed to be, which is surrounded by like fire bricks. So yes, if the fire was down there, we'd expect to burn off that area.
And what other hypothesis did you consider as to the cause of the fire?
I considered the possibility of a log rolling out of the fireplace. The entire living room was consumed. The floor, the furniture, the whole thing was consumed.
Okay.
So by looking at that hypothesis, that was more of a mental examination of the fire dynamics. So we think about, okay, what would happen if a log on fire rolled out into the room? If that burning log is sitting in the middle of the room, the fire from that log is still going to go up. It's going to start burning the floor underneath it. But for the fire to spread from that log, it's going to take a significant amount of time. And when I mean significant, I mean it's going to take several minutes for it to really spread versus if a log rolls onto your floor in your living room, the whole living room floor isn't going to burst into flames. It's going to take a while for it to progress. Same thing if that log, let's say, rolled all the way over and was up against the couch. The couch is going to catch fire, yes, but if you would watch it, it would start at the log, it would start slowly moving up and into the couch and start slowly spreading on the couch. And of course, as it's doing this, it's giving off smoke and heat that would be easily detectable by someone in the house before it could spread to the entire living room area. So with that dynamic eliminates the log hypothesis as a fire cause.
And if I can kind of circle back to the idea of a chimney or a fireplace fire.
Okay, now that we talked about log, if anyone remembers this, if you're old enough to want your own pet log from Ren and Stimpy, it's a pet log. It's log, 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 log. Welcome back to our childhood. Could you get to the point of that? What caused the fire, sir? Because I don't know about y'all, but we could spend an hour and a half on things that weren't. Let's get to what it was.
You indicated that those are kind of it takes time for the heat to build up before that fire can erupt, for lack of better words.
Because yes, the main heat is contained in the firebox and in the chimney. How that heat gets out usually comes from a small, like a chimney, even a chimney fire. It's a chimney fire that escapes the chimney. It's coming through a small hole. So that's all the heat has to come through that small hole until at some point it ignites the surrounding chimney chase. And that can take time. Obviously, times are very subjective depending on how close the combustible materials are to the chimney, how long has it been, and how old is it, the materials are made of, so that's very subjective. But yes, it doesn't, if you have a hole in your chimney, you start a fire, it's not gonna the whole thing isn't gonna burst into flames. There's gonna be a progression.
In that progression, would there be smoke?
There would be.
And is that something that possibly a person who's not invalid would possibly notice within the residence?
Not any kind of human factors expert. What somebody would or would not do is not within his expertise.
I think he's capable of testifying based on his training experience about, he's investigated these in the past. I think it's fairly reasonable.
I'll allow it.
A typical person should notice smoke in their house. Where that, again, every fire is a little different, so I can't say if this would have been chimney fire, exactly how the smoke and heat would have progressed.
Fair, thank you. And so we've talked about a log rolling out, and you have eliminated that. What is your next hypothesis that you went to?
One of the hypotheses I considered was during the initial interviews with Linda Stermer, she mentioned that there was some an oil candle on I believe it was the half wall between the living room and the dining room on the north side. Again, I considered that. Again, that is a small fire source. I don't know what this oil candle looked like. I'm using generalization terms. I'm assuming it is a normal, could be as much as a lantern, an oil lantern, or a smaller candle that's from.
Well then, yeah, he's describing what are possible oil lanterns that he's encountered, so I think he's even said he doesn't know what it was, but he's just describing what they could be.
I'll get information that there was an oil candle in the area. I do not know the size or makeup of it. But if this candle broke or tipped over, again, the fire is going to be relatively small. And it's going to be contained over towards the area of where it was located, which is the half wall towards the north side of the living room. That did not, again, that also has a hard time meeting the challenge of going undiscovered until it was a very large fire.
And these oil lamps, are you familiar with what type of fuel they burn?
The typical oil that these lamps burn are lamp oil. It would actually, if it's tested in a lab, it would come back referred to as a heavy petroleum distillate, which is the same as kerosene or diesel fuel.
And in this case, did you ever receive any lab reports that there was a heavy, what you just described here in court, President Stermer residence?
In the lab results back, there were no indications of a heavy petroleum distillate.
Thank you. And what was the next hypothesis you would have considered?
The next hypothesis I considered was an intentionally started fire. With this hypothesis, the one piece of data on this date, I had smelled accelerant on Todd Stermer's pants. I later learned to further that hypothesis, I waited until I got lab results. I got the lab results back that Todd Stermer's pants had gasoline on them. So I took that information and said, does that fit what I have at the scene? So with a gasoline is on Todd Stermer, and Todd Stermer is also severely burned. So remember I talked about burns on people are also burn patterns. Just like looking at the structure, the burns on Todd Stermer indicated he was at or near the.
Move to strike. One, he's not a medical expert, and under Melser versus Norfolk Railway, he can't testify to medical conditions.
He's not testifying about medical condition. He's talking about the burns. He's
talking about causation.
Sorry.
Thank you. He's talking about causation, burn patterns causing whatever this degree of injury is. That's a medical opinion he can't make.
I don't think that's what he was testifying to. I think
Just
Mr.
asking about burn patterns?
Yeah.
I'll allow the testimony that's burn patterns.
burns on a person is a burn pattern. It is stated right in NFPA 921 that burns on a human is a burn pattern.
You just mentioned NFPA 921. We haven't heard that here in court yet today.
Oh,
What is that?
okay.
What is that, please?
NFPA 921, it's a long acronym. The NFPA stands for National Fire Protection Association. The National Fire Protection Association puts out volumes and volumes of information about building construction, safety precautions, anything to do with fire. And there's so many of them, they give them a number. So the specific number, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association 921, is the document that the National Fire Protection Association puts out as a guide to fire investigations. And that is updated, well, now it's updated about every 3.
Tammy Fiat, we were actually calling the deeper voiced defense attorney Timu Oddball, but he does also kind of look like Pitbull, the rapper, so I'll allow either.
3 years.
Guide, or has it also been considered a reference manual?
It's a guide, it's a reference manual.
Very good. So again, we just talked about you considered the burns on Todd Stermer. How is that relevant to your determination of an intentionally set fire?
We know that Todd, with the burns on Todd, I know he is at or near the area of origin. And with the gasoline, positive for gasoline on his sweatpants, that says there is gasoline at or near the area of origin. Now, the gasoline at the area of origin actually fits the description of a fast-moving fire, where instead of a small individual area, the whole area is on fire at the same time.
Well, let's go this way. Does the statement of Linda Stermer that you reviewed factor into this as well?
Linda Stermer's statement is very important to the factor.
Why is that?
Because Linda Stermer was at the scene. She was in the house. She was able to give statements. Witness statements are very important. Her statement was that she was in the basement. She heard Todd upstairs scream. She ran upstairs and she saw.
Yeah, detonator, that's what I'm wondering, because the absence, so basically your diagnosis is a diagnosis of basically no diagnosis. You differentially diagnosed, the fireplace and all of those things out, and you're left with either you don't know or it was intentionally set. Now, I do understand that you do have the foreknowledge that you said that you smelled gasoline on Todd Stermer. So I do understand that, and I guess it would be more incredible for you to have come up with this without those factors in there. But did you find a piece of wood with gasoline on it? Like anything, sir?
The living room on fire. Subsequent statements. That was the initial statement I believe she gave the detective route. Then later statements were more specific. It says, started the same, in the basement, heard Todd scream, ran up the stairs, described seeing the recliner towards the north side of the living room on fire. Todd was towards the south in the living room with his upper torso on fire. And there was fire on the floor between Todd and the recliner. That description of a very quick starting fire, of she's in the basement, she's awake, and she hears a scream, that would be then she goes upstairs and finds this large fire, not concentrated in one area, but it's spread in two areas across the room with a connecting fire between. That is an indication of a fast fire, which would be explained by the presence of an ignitable liquid, gasoline, which would lead to, there's been no evidence of why gasoline should be in the living room. That would
Fair.
To lead me to believe this is an intentionally set fire.
Now, additionally, the trail of fire from essentially one side of the living room to the other was described by Linda Stermer. Is that what your testimony was?
Yes.
And in your line of work, is that described as something?
It can mean several things.
Okay.
I'd prefer just to leave it at that statement.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, I actually like this expert because he knows kind of where the state is going. And he's like, look, it doesn't really, I get what you're trying to bring in here, but I'm not wanting to, you know, comfortably say that. Now, that being said, I would hope that he had more than just, you know, kind of the angels of the absences to point us to this being a, you know, intentional fire. But it does make sense the way he is explaining it. And I am going to stop right there and end this stream. If you are on Facebook, it should take you directly to the stream that will start at 3:30. Now, if you are on Rumble, as soon as I get off or stop this stream, I will hop onto Rumble and put the new stream up and link it onto the other streams. So I will see you guys in just a little bit. I'm going to go get the young most ferals, and we are going to come back and see if we can knock out a good another 2 hours of this. It does look like we are in for, well, Pitbull, Timu Pitbull from, you know, Pitbull and rapping. So that'll be great. And thank you for the dancing bananas. Love dancing bananas, although I don't think they can quite get it yet. I will see you guys in just a little bit. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Carry a sassy mouth and a can of bitch fire, though, because kindness no longer equals doormat, and maybe we'll get some more answers. That being said, it looks like we, in about how many hours? So let's see, it is getting ready to be 2 o'clock here, so about an hour and a half. So about an hour and a half, and I will be back, and we will be, you know, trying to get another chunk of this trial done. So, because apparently Mr. Moe and I need to talk tonight. I don't think I did anything that I should be in trouble for, but then again, I never think I should be in trouble. I'm just kidding. It's more work stuff, but to be fair, I could also be in trouble. Bye, you guys.